us with 100, almost 190.
Whoa. So,
So yeah, so because we basic is already have the basic selfie. Right now 145 is plus. It's extra. It's extra. So if because right now I'm 42, 42, and then right now I got 20. So if I next 20 now I got 62. It's 62 plus 145. I already over 200.
mm. So because of the tariff now, you can't bring
Yeah,
stuff into
yeah.
New
So
York
I
from
when I
China.
stop, yeah, I stop. Yeah, when I stop, still waiting. Some deal with the China government.
Wow.
Mhm.
Okay. Okay. So what
Mhm.
what was the deal now? Are you gonna start making your
I
item here
I
in
know.
New York or what?
I don't know that right now they I right now every place was just monitor the news. So
Right.
right now it's still nothing for us.
Wow.
So I just waiting, yeah, waiting. Right now, and then why not I stop the merchandise from China, but I don't know yet because right now I'm still waiting because I need at, at least wait 145.
Yeah, that's
If I more is
145% tariff on China, right?
yeah, yeah. So if it total 145 plus 42. Yeah, I have 42 or 43, and then I already have almost 190. 190 is crazy.
Oh my goodness. Okay.
Hmm.
Well, but are you still gonna be able to keep your business running?
I don't know if they not going down. Maybe I think a lot of common China will be closed the business.
Mm. It's
Maybe a lot. Yeah.
it's about to be made in America now, bro. Made in America, Alex.
maybe, maybe yes.
Made in USA. Okay, Alex, I'll text you, okay?
Okay.
Thank you,
Okay.
my friend.
Oh, thank you.
All
Thank you
right.
for that.
Thank you for tuning into the live show. You know what time it is. It is your boy Genesis. It is currently 4:56 p.m. and today's date is the 15th of April 2025. Yes, that is my friend from New York. He's Chinese in New York and he does e-commerce. And you heard him. He said everything is wild now. It has to be, and I said, you heard me. You heard me. I said it has to be made in the United States. Okay. It has to be made in the United States. Thank you for tuning into the live show. All right. Shout out to Ellie. Welcome. Thank you for tuning in. That was a nice pivot. All right. Let's see what's going on here. All right. Here we go. Tariff is changing every single thing in the United States. The way people do business, people who order from China, it's just going wild right now. Like a lot of people are not able to operate their businesses because of the tariff. However, this is going to bring jobs into the United States. You heard me on my phone call. This man doesn't even know if his business is going to keep going with the tariff um, that is going on between the United States and China. However, you could tell that he's like, whoa. When I say, you know what? Are you going to start making this product in New York because they are based out of New York, but they operate from China? It's like, okay, so you're getting your stuff from China, reselling in New York, and now the tariff is going crazy for you. So hopefully he finds a solution to that. But with that being said, thank you for tuning into the live show. A lot has been going on. Let's see what's going on between the two
The global
giant.
financial markets have been roiled by US President Donald Trump's tariffs and the multiple revisions, delays, as well as exemptions and muddied explanations that have come along with them from the president and his top economic advisors. Now, there's been extreme volatility as investors wonder if the most impactful tariffs will really happen. The White House insists that they will. In the meantime, uncertainty reigns. Today on Wall Street in early trading, we're sitting well into positive territory. Dow, NASDAQ and S&P well above that 0.5% mark in the green. And this is quite important because we've seen real pressure coming through. But the last few days, we've seen some reprieve. And again, it has to do with the messaging from the White House. In the meantime, European stock markets are edging higher today after President Trump said he's considering those exemptions on auto tariffs. Here's a look at the major indices later in the trading day. As you can see, all in the green. The FTSE up 1.2% and the IBEX up almost 2%. Now, the EU announcing today it is going to impose retaliatory tariffs on hundreds of American products, ranging from clothing to toilet paper, if trade talks with the US fail. I want to bring in Nick Robertson from London. He's on top of the story for us. And Nick, frankly, the Europeans have said if things don't go as planned and there's no negotiation and deal on the table, they are willing to embark on countermeasures. So give me a sense of what is happening behind closed doors, what kind of conversations are occurring, and whether the US and the Europeans can see eye to eye.
Well, they saw eye to eye yesterday, quite literally, because their top trade commissioner was in Washington meeting with US counterparts. And he said, look, taking this opportunity of a 90-day pause on these US tariffs. President Trump had initially said 20% on Europe on horizontal tariffs, taking it down to 10%, holding it off for 90 days. Okay. They're into these talks, but he did say this is going to be difficult. It's going to require both sides. And he also said that the tariffs were unfair. So he is back in Europe now, briefing ambassadors. This is how the EU works about the nature of and the result of and the content of those conversations. But what else is happening? And you just talked about it. Well, last week, the European Union took a decision on $23 billion worth of tariffs on the United States for okay, we've got to look at this very carefully here because it was 4 aluminum and steel tariffs that the US had announced back in February. That came about, this is your question about what's actually happening behind the scenes, coordination, conversations between the Commission and the constituent countries that make up the European Union. Everything is a discussion. Everything they say is done carefully. It's done, sort of to the agreement of all the different parties involved. So what you're talking about here, we got the details from the European Union today of the tariffs that they would have imposed today had President Trump last week not put a 90-day hold. The European Union saying this is what we would have targeted, this basket of goods, which includes, as you say, toilet paper, makeup. But that's not the end of it. What the European Union agreed to last week was a phased rollout of tariffs. So you have those tariffs that would have gone out today. They're on the 90-day pause. You have tariffs that would have gone out, 25% by the way, in May on beef, on other agriculture products, a graded pain threshold going up, if you will. And then in December, soybean, a massive export coming from the United States to the European Union. And no surprise, the European Union very carefully, this gets to what they're doing behind the scenes, looking at what they target. Soybeans produced, a lot of them coming from Louisiana. Louisiana's a red state. This is the European Union signaling that it's trying to sort of get to the, if you will, the producers of these products who might have a political influence on President Trump's thinking. That's the calculus. But here's another point. Okay, so there's those 10% horizontal tariffs plus the 25% vehicle car tariffs that the United States has imposed on the European Union and the rest of the world as well. There hasn't been a response, reciprocal tariffs coming back from the European Union on that. They're considering it. And there's several massive areas of commerce, such as goods, pharmaceuticals, medicines, oil that it buys, liquid natural gas products from the United States, energy products. They haven't touched that yet. Neither have they touched services, which is another massive sector of financial importance that the United States in essence, exports these services to the European Union. So this is a very, very graded response, carefully managed, step by step. That's what's happening behind the scenes.
Yeah, I mean, truly fascinating. And here's the reality. I mean, markets seem to have rebounded somewhat. It seems that, there's a little bit of reprieve here. But from what I'm hearing, and based on what you're saying, the Europeans have many levers that they can pull, frankly, with the United States. And from our sense is you've got the global world trade order that is being rejigged, reworked completely. It seems like tariffs are here to stay. Are the Europeans prepared for that eventuality?
I think they're signaling that they are. They're signaling and saying that they're prepared for tough negotiations. They'd rather have a 0-to-0 tariff relationship with the United States, but that's something the United States has turned down. They say that they're ready for these negotiations to be tough. And the way that they're grading them, if you will, and sort of putting out the ones that have less economic impact first, although again, the point is they put those on a 90-day hold, that the way that they're stepping them out is designed to increase the pain slowly and over a period of time. So it was in early February that President Trump announced these 25% tariffs globally on aluminum and steel. It took until last week for the European Union to make a decision on that. So it is in this for the long game, careful, slow. And part of the messaging here, and we've talked about this before, is the European Union wants to send to its other trading partners a very clear signal that they're not going to be reactionary and do things quickly in the way that the United States has put these tariffs on, announced the tariffs, backtracked, gone backwards and forwards, mixed messages, unclear signals, uncertainty. Businesses hate that, right? What the European Union is trying to do here, not just in its response to the United States to send a message there, but to send it to other trading partners around the world, that they are consistent, that they are careful, that they are reliable, that they are stable. And so are they prepared for the long game? That's what they're signaling. And the markets are signaling that they're hunkering down for a longer game where they can get back into some positive territory. But I don't think anyone feels, particularly not in the EU in Brussels, that this is over by a long stretch. Yeah,
exactly. Let me tell you, I've covered markets.
Tariff is definitely affecting a lot. But I get it, bringing manufacturing back to the United States, to the homeland, that is the objective. And this is why he became the United States president. He said it. He said he wanted to bring back factories, jobs made in the United States. You know how he said it, the big, beautiful, made in USA logo. So that's what is going on right now. But it is actually affecting a lot of small businesses.
It's long enough to know that every single country on the planet wants to increase its industrial capacity and export as much as possible. So frankly, what the United States wants, everyone wants. Nick Robertson, great to have you with us. All right, so moving on to China, because it's the president there is responding to the Trump tariffs by working to build trade ties with some regional neighbors. Xi Jinping is on a three-nation tour of Vietnam, Malaysia, and Cambodia, painting China as a stable, reliable partner in the global trade market. Stephen Jiang has the details for us.
Xi Jinping's message to Vietnam and indeed many other countries is to join hands with China to resist Trump's quote-unquote unilateral bullying and work together to maintain the current global free trade system and supply chains. Now, this is going to be repeated and amplified throughout his trip. The goals of his trip very much twofold. Economically, China trying to continue to diversify its footprint. And it's no coincidence he started in Hanoi because Southeast Asian countries as a bloc has replaced the US and European Union as China's biggest trading partner, and Vietnam having the biggest share among all Southeast Asian nations. That's why Xi Jinping has signed 45 different deals and agreements with Vietnam, not only trying to sell a lot of products now being shut out of the US, but also we are going to show you love. We are on your side. Now, this message perhaps a lot more resonant to a lot of countries compared to just a few weeks ago, as China continues to portray itself as the adult in the room with an intensifying trade war with Washington and trying to play the role of the upholder of international order and norms. And a lot of these countries, though, including Vietnam, have to be a little careful in terms of how they tread. They don't want to be perceived too close to Beijing and risk provoking Trump at a time when they still have to negotiate with the president on their pending tariffs. And the U.S. president very much noticing this meeting in Hanoi, characterizing it in his words as China and Vietnam figuring out how to screw the USA.
What was once a winning message for President Trump?
Some folks are saying that the OG's rating is tanking. They're saying, well, because of the tariffs and trade deals, trade war, or whatever you want to call it, they're saying that Trump's approval rating is tanking. Most people that I have spoken with in real life that actually voted for Trump, they support what he's doing. Now, people who didn't vote for Trump, of course, they still don't like Trump. You know what I mean? It's like, it's how they've always felt about him. That's how they still feel, okay? But people who actually voted for him and campaigned with him, actually watched his campaign, listened to what he said he was going to do, everything he said he was going to do, he's working on it or he's already done it. So it's like, of course, if you voted for Trump, you support what he's doing.
Is now appears to be a growing liability. Harry, just stay here for a second.
Okay.
New polling shows independents are turning somewhat sour on President Trump's economic leadership right now with the rollout of his tariff agenda. And that's exactly what Harry Enten was doing, looking into the numbers to bring it to you. Okay, look, we're focusing in on independents on this one.
Yes.
So where does he stand with independents? Just kind of base.
Yeah, we'll focus in on independents here. And independents feel that Donald Trump has vacated the center of the electorate, catering to his base. What are we talking about? Well, let's talk about the overall net approval ratings. We're going to look at the worst ever at this point in a presidency. The old record among independents for the worst ever was Donald Trump back in 2016, a net approval rating of minus 16 points. Well, Donald Trump has broken his own record here. He now holds, in this particular term, the worst ever net approval rating at this point in a presidency among independents at, get this, minus 22 points. He is 22 points underwater with independents. That breaks the old record that belonged to Trump. He is.
These same folks were the same ones that told you that Kamala Harris was going to win the election. They remember when they told you? Remember when they said it? There's no way Trump was going to win the election. Like, if you check it out, Kamala Harris is looking like she's going to be the next. And here we go. Same folks are telling you he's underwater. I don't think so.
Set the new record. He is completely underwater with the center of the electorate, Kate Baldwin.
And this is overall. This
Yes.
is on all the issues. Now, focus in specifically on the economy.
Yeah, let's focus in on the economy, right? What is driving this overall approval rating for Donald Trump among independents to go underwater? Let's take a look at the economy. And let's take a look at Trump's net approval rating on it and look at the trend line over just the last few months. You go back to January, he was slightly above water with independents at plus 1 point. Look at this drop, Kate. Oh my, minus 29 points. That's a 30-point drop in under 3 months of time. What independents are hearing from Donald Trump, they hate. They hate what they're hearing from Donald Trump, and they are abandoning him in record numbers. At this point in his last presidency, he was about at 0 points in terms of his net approval rating on the economy, and now he's at minus 29 points. You go back through the record books, I simply put, Kate Baldwin, can't find anything close to this. This is such a record that there is no historical analogy to be 29 points underwater on the most important issue of the day with independents. This right here, my dear friends, is political poison. If an election were held today and Donald Trump's net approval rating in the economy was minus 29 points with independents, I'm not quite sure how how Republicans can hold on to the House of Representatives.
Is it all tariffs that are driving this?
Yeah, okay. So let's take a look here at tariffs. This is definitely part of it. A clear plan for tariffs and trade among independents. Look at this. 57% say no. He doesn't even have a clear plan for what he should be doing with tariffs and trade. And when asked whether or not they like the idea of additional tariffs, guess what percentage of independents say no, that they oppose it? It is 2/3. It is 66% of independents who oppose new tariffs. They don't like anything that's coming out of Donald Trump's right now, absent maybe immigration. But when it comes to the economy, when it comes to overall, when it comes to tariff, it's a threesome for negativity among.
Okay, so you're saying that, oh, wait, they like what he's doing with the border. And then you say overall they don't like what he's doing? Okay.
Independents, they oppose. They simply do not like the words that are coming out of Donald Trump's mouth and the plans that he is putting forward to the American public.
So showing that it's not just economic risks that he's taking with the just wait, it will get better on his tariff plan. It's a political risk as well, which is just wait, it'll get better. So.
You know what? They can wait, what is it, about 18 months until the midterm elections?
Yeah.
But eventually the bill will come due, and we'll see at that time whether or not independents turn around on Donald Trump. It would have to take something historic for it to occur.
Let us see.
We'll see.
John?
All right. With us now is Congresswoman Mikey Sherrill, a Democrat from New Jersey. She is running to be governor of that state. Congresswoman, thank you so much for being with us. As we said, you're out there running for governor right now. What specifically are New Jersey voters telling you about the president's tariffs?
Oh, I think New Jersey voters are telling me what you were seeing in that poll. They're very unhappy with these tariffs because they're affecting people's day-to-day lives. I mean, here we are having an affordability crisis in New Jersey. I'm running to make sure we can drive down the cost of housing, drive down the cost of utilities, improve the broken healthcare system. And yet Donald Trump is throwing everything into chaos, making everything worse. So I just talked to a local developer who told me he's paused all plans on development because his HVAC guy said that prices were going to go up 30 to 40%. So people cannot make future plans because of this chaotic tariff regime that's going on right now.
You spent a lot of your time on Congress battling China and trying to be tough on China. You were a big backer of the TikTok ban, which is not into effect, and it doesn't seem like will be in effect anytime soon. But that aside, what do you think Xi Jinping in China thinks of the president's tariffs now and how he's operating, given that these exemptions keep on popping up?
I think President Xi is just looking at this thinking, great. I have been trying to topple the predominance of the United States' economy for years now and to grow China's, and Trump is delivering it right into his hands. This chaos is not only bad for citizens of the United States, but of course our trading partners across the world are looking at this and thinking we're going to have to look for markets elsewhere. The United States is no longer dependable here. So where are they going to look? China. That has the other really large economy in the world.
First things first, if you are an American and you say with your mouth, America is no longer dependable. Like, how do you open your mouth as an American to say, well, America is no longer dependable? And you're running for governor and you can say, America is no longer dependable? Look, come on, man. Come on, man.
And Trump is just delivering to Xi such an economic benefit that it's really jaw-dropping here.
So if you win election in November, you'll have 3 years to deal with this Trump administration. And the question is, how will you do that as a Democratic governor? Governor Gretchen Whitmer of Michigan just took a trip to Washington. I think she was supposed to be meeting with the president on the issue of National Guard bases in Michigan. Instead, she found herself in the Oval Office during some signings of executive orders that dealt with, among other things, the 2020 election and election denialism. She hid her face behind folders because I think she didn't want to be seen there.
Yeah.
What lesson can you take from this in terms of how you would like to deal with the administration?
I think I can take the lesson that everybody should be taking. This is an administration that is totally into, how Trump can self-deal, how he can enrich himself and his family and his billionaire friends. So I have to tell you, as we look at what's going on right now, people being picked up without charges, deported to El Salvador, and, the courts ordering them back, and Trump meeting with the Salvadoran president and sort of yucking it up about how they're just going to ignore that. Everyone should be concerned, because then you're next, right? I have served in places across the world where this kind of thing happens. And I will tell you, it doesn't stop here. It goes on to encompass people who speak out against the dictator in charge. So everyone should be concerned, and working with him has such downside risks. So when you see him picking off law firms, when you see him picking off schools, they think they can work here and kind of keep their heads down. It never works out that way. You're always put in that kind of position that we see where it somehow emboldens, enriches, helps Trump, and destroys you and whatever you are on a path to do, including all of the values of this country.
Does that mean you think it's a mistake? You thought it was a mistake for Gretchen Whitmer, the governor of Michigan, to go try and work with him on things?
Look, I think right now what Democratic governors have to do, what I am running to do, is to provide a different pathway forward from what we see coming from Washington. Not only protecting rights and freedoms in our states, but also working on how we, as Democratic governors, are going to build out the future. How are we going to invest in homes? How are we going to drive down utility costs? These are the things I'm...
But you had 4 years, though. You had 4 years. You had Joe Biden for 4 years. What did he do? Man, please. Next.
Up, down, all around, which country, which product, over what period of time. It's creating a lot of havoc, chaos. I think businesses are shell-shocked, panicked by this. They don't know what to do. They're sitting on I don't think anyone's cutting back yet. I don't think we're not seeing any layoffs. We're not seeing businesses cut investment at this point, but they're sitting on their hands, just waiting to see how this all plays out, if it will play out, over some period of time. And it's causing a lot of consternation among consumers. You can see it in consumer sentiment. Consumers are very worried about what's going on in the price increases that are coming, and obviously investors are, beside themselves. You can see it in the equity market, but particularly in the bond market. So far, the damage is in just the kind of the general sense of things. People are very uncertain, unsure, and this back and forth on tariffs just adding to that confusion and chaos and making people nervous. Why would any company locate and expand in the United States of America if they don't know what the tariffs are going to be? Just pretend you're a CEO of a major global manufacturing firm, a vehicle company, and thinking about building a factory. It takes 3 years to build a factory to start producing cars. To determine whether you're going to make that investment, you have to know what the tariffs are, because these are big tariffs. These aren't small tariffs. This isn't 1%, 2%, 5%. This is 25%, 30%, 35%. And so you need to have some clarity on that. But how can you get clarity? These tariffs are done under executive order. They can be changed with the stroke of a pen, and they may not even be legal. So they can be struck down 18 months from now. So if I'm that CEO and I'm thinking, should I build that factory? How can I possibly make that investment? And they won't. They just won't make that investment.
Here's a statement from a CEO today. Adding American manufacturing helps us better meet the incredible and growing demand for AI chips and supercomputers, strengthens our supply chain, and boosts our resiliency.
You're talking about NVIDIA.
The CEO of NVIDIA. Yeah, but Scott, how did they make that announcement today?
Scott, CEOs are going to make. Why wouldn't you make that announcement? Why wouldn't you make?
You just said they won't. No, I'm saying they did.
Why they would do it anyway? They would do it anyway. And in many cases, they make the announcements and they don't. Foxconn is a great example of that. Go back to President Trump's first term. There was this big $10 billion investment that was supposed to happen in the state of Wisconsin. Go take a look at what was invested.
NVIDIA's going to make this chip in Arizona.
But why wouldn't you say that?
They say it's good for business to be in the United States because it's good for their supply chains and
just
so
think
on
about
and so
this
forth.
logically. Think about for the intuition.
I just want to also make a note that the manufacturing policy behind bringing chips to the United States originated in the Biden administration.
Correct.
And Trump is taking advantage of some of that now. But the other part of the NVIDIA announcement and that statement, and a lot of what we're seeing, is what a lot of people are warning is going to happen if everybody gets exemptions, if they can just say nice things about the guy in charge in the White House. This is what Fareed Zakaria says is coming.
these tariff negotiations will inevitably result in an orgy of corruption. The American economy is being transformed from the leading free market in the world to the leading example of crony capitalism. A market economy functions best when there are limited constraints placed on it, but especially when these constraints are clear, fair, and applicable to all.
That is exactly the opposite. Fair, clear, and applicable to all. That is the opposite of what is happening every day.
And so here's a couple of things, right? Chaos and pain is what the American people are feeling. If you are someone who is a working person in this country, you're being told, I know you elected me because of inflation, hold on a little longer. I need you to just take maybe another year or two. That is a betrayal of the people who elected him. And what's interesting, if we look at that CBS News poll, which we probably have, his approval ratings on handling the economy going down. And the two top people that, just to what Fareed just said, Americans believe benefit the most, 74% the wealthy, 71% large corporations. Now, whether it's NVIDIA or whatever corporation, the point is he's losing the confidence of the American people. I think we're seeing that not only in the polls, but in the turnout at events where people are expressing their frustration. You have a lot of small business owners who also are very anxious.
Part of what the problem I have with the conversation is we're talking as if this is a fait accompli. We're talking as if it's done, the tariffs are permanent, recession is here, it's all over, doom and gloom. As Warren Buffett famously said, it's only a loss when you sell. I can tell you, Abby, I have not sold. I'm telling our advisors to stay the course. The game's not over yet.
Can I just say, though, we're right on the edge here. I mean, another 3, 4, 5, 6 weeks of this, and we're going into recession because businesses aren't going to sit on their hands forever, and they're going to decide, I am going to cut, and I am going to start to lay off. And at the end of the day, a recession is a loss of faith, and people are losing faith.
That's cap. People are not losing faith. They voted for this exactly.
So new whiplash tonight over the fate of the global economy. The major U.S. stock indexes ended the day up a little less than 1%. They were up. Investigators appeared to be encouraged by news over the weekend that President Trump would exempt some tech products, including smartphones, computers, and components like semiconductors, from his new tariffs. But would the market have had an even better day if the president himself hadn't subsequently poured cold water on the whole thing? Mr. Trump posted online yesterday that nobody is getting off the hook and that additional tariffs on what he calls the whole electronic supply chain are still a possibility. And late tonight, breaking news from Reuters and the New York Times that the administration is indeed taking formal steps to impose tariffs on the pharmaceutical and semiconductor sectors. Here to make sense of it, or try, Richard Quest, editor-at-large at CNN Business and anchor of Quest Means Business and CNN International, and Anna Swanson, reporter on trade and international economics for the New York Times. And Anna, let me just start with you on this news because it was a formal step taken by the Secretary of Commerce investigating the national security impact on pharmaceuticals and semiconductors. What exactly does this mean, and how quickly will tariffs follow?
Yeah, so this starts a process where the Trump administration is going to investigate whether imports of both drugs and computer chips and products that have computer chips in them are a threat to U.S. national security. And then that could result in tariffs at some point down the line. We don't know exactly how long that investigation will take, whether that will take, just a matter of weeks or longer. But the president has signaled pretty clearly that these investigations are going to result in tariffs. So that is certainly something we expect to see.
Yeah, to that end, Richard, let me play something that the president said in the Oval Office today.
We don't make our own drugs, our own pharmaceuticals. We don't make our own drugs anymore. The drug companies are in Ireland and they're in lots of other places, China.
The fact that we don't even make our own drugs anymore. Medicine. We have to be able to make our own medicine in the United States. You can't be outsourcing medications to China or Ireland. That's like out of this world. But
and all I have to do is impose a tariff. The more, the faster they move in. The higher the tariff, it's very simple. It's inversely proportional. The higher the tariff, the faster they come.
Is that the way it works?
Well, it's straightforward economics. If it's more expensive to make it there, you'll make it here. I mean, if the pain is greater there, you'll bring it back. What's interesting about this is, I think the president's got a valid point that the amount of pharmaceuticals made outside of the United States is quite vast, but for valid reasons, because economically it was cheaper under the idea of, where do you manufacture that is the most economically efficient. So it was in India and it was in other parts like Ireland and those sort of parts. But the US has woken up to the fact that they do need to onshore or friendshore more of the pharmaceuticals back. But I'm not sure this is the right way to do it.
Anna, what does China think about all this? Specifically, the carve out for phones and electronics over the weekend, then saying, oh, it's not a carve out. But what are they supposed to take from this?
Well, there has been a lot of changes to tariff policy, really, very substantial and kind of extreme moves unfolding over the past week. And I think, what China might take away from it is that the pain points in the United States and for the presidency are now quite obvious. It seems like the president has moved in response to turmoil in the bond market, the stocks and financial market. And also it seems like pressure from tech CEOs, concerns potentially about raising the cost of electronics for consumers. So, the president has been very resolute, very ambitious about his tariffs, but, clearly he is willing to walk them back if he's under enough pressure. And that could be a lesson for China as well.
That's an interesting point, that he may be showing them where the United States is weak, telegraphing where they can apply some of this pressure. Richard, a new survey of more than 300 CEOs released today found that 62% are expecting a recession or an economic downturn in the next 6 months. You think it's already happening, basically?
Oh, look, recession.
In my humble opinion, we've already experienced recession all through the former president's term, Joe Biden. Everything was expensive. Interest rate, everything was expensive. So inflation is down, interest rate is down, and yet the complaints from the media is way worse than when Joe Biden was president. Of course, we get it. The tariff is on and going, but these are negotiation tactics to get to a better trade deal. But let's listen to what the professionals has to say.
Inevitability? I don't know. Serious downturn? Yes. Highly likely for a recession? Very probable. Because the ingredients of this are now in there. I mean, the big mixture has been put in there. Tariffs, slowdown, confusion, chaos, federal government layoffs, worries about jobs. It's all now being mixed in. This is actually baking. Larry Fink summed it up. He said the economy is already slowing. It's going to be very difficult now to reverse it because consumers are seeing what's happening. A downward spiral has begun that's going to be very difficult to reverse. And at some point, that recession becomes inevitable. I don't know whether we're there yet. I don't think anybody does. But we are well and truly on the track to it.
Richard Quest, Anna Swanson, thank you both so much for being with us.
Senator Kennedy, always good to have you. Thank you, sir. Your state exported $10 billion worth of goods to China just last year, more than it shipped to any other country. In 2023, Louisiana's overall export of goods accounted for more than 30% of your GDP. This is all according to the Office of the U.S. Trade Representative. How worried are you about this trade war with China and its potential impact on the jobs of hardworking families in your state?
Well, we don't know yet. I listened to your prior guest, the gentleman you interviewed, predict that civilization is going to melt, and I don't see any indication of that. I heard you comment about Mr. Dalio saying that the world economic structure is going to break down. I don't see any indication of that. The dollar's a little bit weaker and interest rates have gone up. Here's what I see. I see a lot of uncertainty.
Yeah, for sure.
And I think to some extent it's intentional. if you listen to the president's aides weekend before last and then listen to them this weekend, you don't have to be Einstein's cousin to figure out they were saying things that were inconsistent. Now, that raises one or two possibilities to me. Either it's intentional or these folks aren't competent to manage a food truck. Now, I know them. They're intelligent people, whether you agree with them or not. So I think the administration, for whatever reason, is obfuscating a little bit. Maybe it's part of the president's negotiating strategy. I just don't know. I do know this: tariffs are important, but so are high prices. The trade balance is abstract. The price of eggs is concrete, and we need to be spending a lot of time on reconciliation, redesigning the tax code, deregulating the economy, reducing spending to get prices down. That's it. Is at least as important as tariffs, in my opinion.
Well, let's talk about the so-called big, beautiful bill President Trump is urging Congress to pass, which will lay out most of the president's agenda, including tax cuts that you just mentioned, additional border security, and more. The House of Representatives passed its framework last week. You're now calling for a 60-day deadline to hash everything out before calling in President Trump. Senator Lindsey Graham of South Carolina, he wants to get the bill to the president by Memorial Day. Are you confident that the House, the Senate, and the White House can make a deal on what should be included?
Here's what I think will happen, for what it's worth. And before I leave the subject, just remember, Jake, there's no tariff fairy that you can go to get instructions on how to do this. This stuff's more art than science, and I think we're living that experience. Now, to answer your question, Mike Johnson did a great job getting the House on board.
This is why I respect Senator John Kennedy. Listen to what he said. He said, tariffs, this is more art than science. Because if everybody could actually implement the tariff situation, Obama would have done it, Joe Biden would have done it, all these people would have done it if they could actually fix the trade deficit we have. But nobody could do it. Now this guy is attempting to do it like he promised. He wants to balance the budget. It's like, why can't we just all rally around him, support him, and say, you know what? How long would this take? Okay, because we get it. Small businesses are gonna, definitely get a very short hand of the stick. But like, if we like think about it, this is in the long run going to benefit the United States. It's just the truth. Except you want to say, you know what? Well, we want to outsource every manufacturing to China. And you would have people that would say, you know what? America cannot manufacture iPhones. We don't want to walk in factories. We don't want to pick crops in the farm or whatever. They're actual farmers, American farmers right now, picking oranges, grapes right now on American soil right now. There are people right now in America working in factories, building stuff right now. So there are a lot of Americans that will actually work these jobs. But if these jobs are not in America, and the other thing is you're going to say, well, it's going to be expensive to pay for work. Of course, you want to be able to pay these people that are working decent amount of money so they could have a life. Most people are going to say, well, say no to slavery, but then you want to pay these people in China the smallest amount of money, working in the worst, harshest conditions, and then you're going to be here protesting for saying no to slavery. Come on, man. There's a lot that goes into this stuff. That's why John Kennedy said this is art, not science. You just have to listen.
Here's what I predict will happen. Mike and John Thune in the Senate will give their bodies 30 to 60 days to try to come to a consensus on what's going to be in the bill. We won't. It'll be like herding butterflies. We'll end up having to go to the president, and this isn't necessarily a bad thing, and say, Mr. President, arbitrate this. Tell us what you think should be in, what should be out. And then President Trump is going to have to go sell it. Otherwise, I think we could spend a year on this and get nothing done. Sometimes we do spend a year and get nothing done. That's not a good thing. I mean, the economy needs a little boost right now in light of all the tariff uncertainty and the reconciliation bill, and designing a tax code to stimulate growth, and designing a tax code that looks like somebody designed it on purpose can fit that bill, in my opinion.
So you just talked about the need for President Trump to explain whatever is agreed upon. I have heard from Republicans on this show and others saying that they didn't think President Trump, as great as a communicator as they think he is normally, fully explained what he is trying to do with these tariffs. In other words, yes, he has talked a lot about tariffs, but the idea that he is seeking to reshore manufacturing to the United States, and that this is going to be a difficult period, and that there are going to be higher prices, and on, that has not been, in their view, adequately communicated to the American people. What do you think?
Well, here's what I think. I see what you see. I think I know what's in the president's heart, but I don't know what's in his head. The people you're talking about are right. The administration has not given one clear rationale for its tariffs. I think that's intentional. That I don't know, but my guess is it's intentional, and that it is part of the president's negotiating strategy. But Jake, I don't want to feign understanding here. I don't know, but that's my best guess, knowing how the president operates.
Republican Senator John.
I mean, the president believes.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say the president believes if you're going to be a bear, be a grizzly. Like him or dislike him, agree or disagree. Right now, he's being a grizzly.
Republican Senator John Kennedy of Louisiana, thank you so much. Always good to have you on, sir.
Grizzly bear. Right now, he's being a grizzly bear for America. He's trying to bring back manufacturing to the United States. I mean, think about it. You cannot possibly be okay with your drugs, your medications that you need to survive are being made from other countries like China, like Ireland. Wouldn't you like that or those medications to be made in the United States? I know you guys are going to say, well, it's more affordable in China. It's cheaper in Ireland. Yes, we know. Okay, we know. But what if something bad happens tomorrow? Okay, what if there's some crazy misunderstanding between these countries? What are you going to do then? They're going to stop shipping Ozempic to the United States. I mean, that was just an example, okay? I'm not saying Ozempic is, I'm just saying, right? Any of these drugs made in all these countries, what if they just stop it? Like, what is going to happen?
Thank you.
Small businesses all across the U.S. are feeling the impact of rising tariffs, and that's especially true for mom and pop stores, or in this case, mom and daughter stores like Gabby Bo's. It's a South Carolina-based company which started off as an elementary school science project. It says it sold more than 1 million barrettes in the U.S. and 16 countries, but Trump's new tariffs have put the future of the small company in doubt. And I'm joined now by the mother-daughter co-founders of Gabby Bo's. Rosalind Goodwin started the business with her then 7-year-old daughter, Gabby. Gabby is not 7 anymore. That was 11 years ago. But she's all grown up. But it's so great to have both of you here with us. Thank you so much for being here. Rosalind, I just want to start first with you. We're at 145% tariffs on imports from China. Walk us through what that means for your business and what the last few weeks have been like, kind of trying to ride this wave.
Well, last fall, we got a dream retailer opportunity of a lifetime. When we started, our tariffs were at 5.3%. And when we signed the deal, they were at 25.3%. And just to give you an example, I woke up to an email from our manufacturer in China asking if they were ready for us to go ahead and proceed with mass production. I told them yes, in order to get these barrettes to our retailer in time. I got on social media and saw that it was 145%. I immediately emailed our manufacturer back and just said, wait, I got to look at these numbers again. It is, we went from having to pay less than $1,000 in tariffs to now almost $6,000 in tariffs, which is more than our order. So it has just been very unpredictable, and that can be very stressful for a small business.
Absolutely. And so I just want to make sure I'm understanding your math right. You're saying $6,000 in tariffs. That's more than you're going to pay just to produce everything for your order itself.
Right. My order was just $3,800. So yeah.
Wow. And Gabby, for you, I know you guys have grown this for 11 years now. I know you guys are talking about being in your dream retailer. It sounds like things are going in the right direction. You've worked really hard. For this moment of uncertainty, this feels just like the worst timing for you.
Yes, it definitely does. I mean, being able to have this amazing opportunity but having such limitations towards it is really sometimes unsettling. Like, you want to be able to celebrate, but at times it's like you don't know if it's going to work out and you don't know if it's taking a major risk. And obviously being able to manufacture overseas, we've been trying to get these barrettes, these double-face, double-snap barrettes manufactured in the US for about 8 years. But it's been so much hassle trying to get that. A lot of people, once we're negotiating, start telling us that we need to continue to do it overseas. So it's just a lot of back and forth for a lot of years that has kind of built up to this moment, which is kind of unsettling, as you mentioned, as we've been able to kind of grow this dream, but not necessarily know if it's going to work out or not.
Yeah, and Rosalind, as Gabby was saying about production, obviously, one thing that the Trump administration wants to do is bring manufacturing and production of goods back to the U.S. It sounds like you all have been trying to do that for a while, but that it's really difficult. What do you think of that proposition, and does that seem realistic for you?
Well, we've tried, as Gabby mentioned, for the last 8 years. We've talked to U.S.-based manufacturers. I was just on the phone with one on Friday who's getting me quotes. The problem is everyone that we've talked to is getting us quotes has said that we have to increase the cost of this pack of our guaranteed anti-slip double-face barrettes from $4 to $10 to $15. And we can't pass that price increase onto our customers when our competition is usually about $1 or $2. So it's unrealistic for a low-cost product. We are grateful that our retail partner is trying to work with us to try to get this first purchase order done, which is due in July. But it does leave a lot of uncertainty for any future purchase orders with this dream retailer.
Yeah, certainly. All right, so Gabby, what comes next? What do you guys do to try to kind of, walk through this uncertain time?
Yes, I think just really being able to lean on our customer base, leaning on the connections that we have, and making sure that we are not just, worried about these products that we're trying to come out with and manufacture, but also lean on the other amazing products that we have coming in store. I am about to be, or am, an author of my first book that comes out in May of 27 with HarperCollins. So that's something to be excited about. But just being able to continue to advocate for not just us as small businesses, or small business owners, but so many small business owners here in the United States who are facing a lot of uncertainty because of these tariffs, and really making sure that we are being that voice and being that advocate for people who are just like us as well.
Yeah, I think there are so many people out there, mothers, daughters, fathers, sons, companies that have been in families for a long time or brand new ones, small businesses that are facing exactly what you guys are right now. We wish you the best, Rosalind and Gabby. Thank you so much.
Prepare to be fooled. That is the warning tonight from Morgan Stanley as Trump may...
Of course, the tariff is definitely going to hurt small businesses. No doubt. Okay. There's absolutely no doubt. That's just how it goes. But especially businesses like e-commerce who outsource their production, their manufacturing in China. Any business that's tied to China this season is going to be hectic. headache. And that's a lot of American entrepreneurs. A lot of American entrepreneurs rely on China for manufacturing. So this period is definitely going to be a trying period for small businesses as well as big businesses as well. But the OG is trying to bring manufacturing back to the homeland. So bear with him.
And out new exceptions to his tariffs. First Electronics now suggesting he might ease tariffs for some automakers.
I'm looking at something to help some of the car companies. Look, I'm a very flexible person. I don't change my mind, but I'm flexible. And you have to be.
Sounds contradictory. Ever since Trump launched his trade war, he has in fact changed his mind, whether it's on reciprocal tariffs, a pause on smartphones and computers, and now possibly cars as well. That is why a strategist for Morgan Stanley writes, quote, investors should prepare to be fooled many more times. If a master plan exists, it's unlikely to work in the way the U.S. administration envisions. And Trump's plan is evolving as the markets swing. Here was Trump today.
Stock market's up. The stock market's up today. We had the largest gain in the stock market in history on every single category last week.
They went down a lot before that. The markets may have been up today, but they're still down more than 4,000 points since Trump threatened his trade war. And today, China's president sent Trump a message in a new editorial, writing, quote, trade war and tariff war will produce no winner, and protectionism will lead nowhere. Out front now, Dan Ives, veteran tech stocks analyst Peter Tuchman, longtime Wall Street trader, and Rana Foroohar, CNN economics analyst and Financial Times columnist. Good to have you all on. Peter, if I could begin with you. So the market went up today, but the dollar dropped again. Still those concerning signs in the bond markets. Is it correct to say, as Trump claims, that, well, the market's fine with this now?
I don't believe so at all. I really want to be upbeat, right? You know, last week, Dan and I were here with you, with Aaron, and, you know, it was a dismal week. You know, I know Mr. Trump said the market did go up, and we did have one day in the midst of a down week, I would call it, where the market was in fact up. But if we go back to Monday, Tuesday, those days were down severely. And so I'd like to stay a little more upbeat. Yes, today was down, but that was after we started the day with a nice rally. You know, the market was up overnight. We came in this morning and the market had a reasonable rally, but by midday we had broken, right? And it's a function of just, look, I think the market has lost some confidence over the last 6 weeks, the last 1 week, and the last couple of days in this fact that we are sort of, it's a bit of a bipolar, you know, passive aggressive approach to these things. We don't really know. There's still no clarity around the whole tariff story. We're given, it's like a pull and a pull. It's like, I was joking with Dan, it's sort of like an old uncle who you used to drive around with when you were a kid, who used to drive with his foot on the gas and the brake, and you're constantly going like this. That's kind of where we are. And so the market is, you know, think about it. We've got traders in the market. Since COVID, 50 million new young traders, retail traders. They're hedge funds, they're institutions, you know, and so everybody's trying to position themselves on how to navigate this market still. And, you know, I don't know if there's much confidence in this thing. People they're trading. You know, the market is trading. This morning we were up, you know, 800-900 points, and we sold off, broke down midday, and then we rallied back into the close. Right. I think that's what we're in store for a while, until there's some defined clarity of policy, which we've still yet to see.
Right. In fact, we've seen a lot of defined
because it's still
confusion.
negotiating,
Rana,
y'all.
You've written that the U.S. is taking on the qualities of an emerging market now because of that confusion and back and forth. Explain how.
Well, you know, typically in historical terms, emerging markets have been seen as markets that have difficult politics, they're volatile, they're less stable, there's corruption. You don't know what's going to happen from one day to the next, and often they're run by a kind of cult of personality figure. And frankly, that's kind of what we're seeing in this administration. It's interesting, too, that quantitatively, there's data to show now that the U.S. political risk levels, as measured by a variety of analysts, are correlating with asset prices and with the dollar in the way that emerging market values often run. Typically the fact that this was the USA and the dollar is the reserve currency kind of gave us a get out of jail free clause, even when politics were rough and more partisan as they have been in the last few years. But in Trump too, that's starting to change. And you really are seeing investors start to say, wait a minute, this is not the America we've known for the last half century. This is a different country.
Dan, hours after trade exemptions for electronics like laptops, smartphones were announced, the Commerce Secretary then said they're only temporary, noting they're still subject to a 20% tariff. I wonder how tech investors are seeing this, right? Because I've been reading about questions about Apple. I mean, Apple stock recovered, but it seems like some investors wonder what the long-term outlook is if these exemptions indeed are temporary only.
Yeah. It was a dizzying weekend, right, in terms of news, because it started with exemptions, and then ultimately, what Nick and others talked about in terms of the different brackets or buckets. Look, I think the reality is that the China reciprocal, the 145%, that would have been the gut punch, the Armageddon for tech names. They needed to separate them out. They did in terms of this other bucket. And that's viewed as a net positive because it basically got them off the cliff. But now in terms of the next month or two, in terms of what those tech tariffs are going to be, that's a question mark. But look, our view is you're going to have negotiations. And the reality is the 10-year, you talked about the 10-year and the weaker dollar and the markets are going to dictate ultimate policy, and they're going to have to get some sort of negotiation.
The thing is, though, Peter, businesses need clarity, not just for the next 72 hours, right? They need it for months and years so that they could figure out what it's going to cost me to make a car, right? Like where am I getting the pieces for this? And therefore I could figure out what to charge for it and what my profit margins are going to be, et cetera. I mean, how can investors settle with this kind of one day it's this, next day it's that? I may make 70 trade deals in the next 60 days. I mean, it just doesn't add up for anybody who writes stock reports, I imagine.
Well, look, we started to see that last week. I think it was Delta Airlines. A number of these larger companies, listed corporations, are not able to give guidance. And the last time we saw this was COVID, right? Where there's no way to predict the next quarter, the next half, or what's going to happen at the end of the year. For investors, this is a hard time. Right, for traders, this is the lifeblood of day traders, and there are many millions of day traders who are taking advantage of this market, and we're even seeing that all the way to the top, where people are trading this market aggressively on the upside and the downside and making money doing it. But from an investing point of view and from guidance for big companies, I mean that's where you start to see things break down. Dan and I have talked about it for a number of days. Where you're seeing where the United States and China have been in a race for a while in AI and in tech, and for a while there, as Nvidia was the flavor of the moment and the stock of the year, and Dan has been touting it for the longest time, and he's a master in the tech sector. There's nobody like him, and you've been talking about CapEx and how that sector has been the high flying master of the last couple of years. It's not been the only thing, but it's helped the market come through. 2023 and 2024 we're up double digits, respectively, and now we're getting. I was joking with Dan. We were looking like we were going to head towards hanging out with the Jetsons. Anybody who's my age will remember the Jetsons. Flying around with George and Elroy, and now it seems like we may be hanging out with the Flintstones, and because we're just getting knocked back down and not all the way to the.
I get it.
But so this clarity it can be problematic for the investors and surely for the corporations.
I mean, it's moving trillions of dollars in the market. It seems to be problematic to some investors. Before we go, Dan, Chinese President Xi Jinping, he's in Vietnam signing deals, right? I mean, the concern has been that trading partners of the U.S. are like, actually, I'd rather trade even with China under these circumstances. I mean, even the EU was talking to China about EVs. Is that where this is going?
Now, ladies and gentlemen, you just heard what this guy said. This is an American, ladies and gentlemen. He said, I would rather trade with China. This is an American, ladies and gentlemen. This is what we get in the United States. He said he would rather trade with China.
Does China fill that void?
This is a game of high-stakes poker. And ultimately, when you look at Vietnam and other countries, that's what's going to be playing out here between China and the U.S., and ultimately it's the economy and the consumers, and obviously these tariffs front and center. But this is, look, this is going to be a volatile, as Tuchman talked about, this is going to be a volatile few weeks, few months. No company's going to really give guidance.
Yeah.
Buckle the seatbelts. That's our opinion, but at least a step forward today versus some dark days last week.
Rana, quickly, can Donald Trump kind of charm his way out of this one? Or does he need to announce some bill of goods, right, for how this is going to go going forward?
Oh, man, he definitely can't charm his way out of it. I mean, waging a trade war on the entire world, adversaries and allies all at once, the trust is gone. I mean, and the fact that, you had him pulling back the tariffs as his USTR, Jameson Greer, was in Congress arguing for them. Other countries look at us and they just say, what the heck is going on? They are moving. China is going to be the winner. Here's the long and short of it. I mean, this is now their game to lose. And it's, I'm not optimistic about the U.S. economy right now.
Dan, Peter, Rana, thanks so much. President Trump is defending his 25% tariff on steel imports, claiming they're bringing trillions of dollars of businesses back to the U.S. This comes as the impacts of those tariffs are already being felt in places like Ohio, where many workers rely on the steel industry. Jason Carroll is out front.
I'm very optimistic, and I agree.
You're optimistic?
I am. I'm extremely optimistic.
Optimistic? Not the word some might use to describe their outlook on the economy, given all the back and forth with tariffs. But here at Swanton Welding, just outside Toledo, Ohio, the company's owner, Norman Zeiter, says thanks to Trump's tariff tactics, he and his workers are feeling good about the future of the business, despite all the ups and downs on Wall Street.
Wall Street affects us to a certain extent, but not a lot.
Welders like Ethan Sanderson also feeling bullish, hoping all that is happening with tariffs will eventually mean more work and income for people like him, which cannot come soon enough, given he's about to be a new father.
Once everything gets sorted out, that it'll help us out in the long run.
Swanton Welding has been a part of this community since Zeiter's grandfather, a World War II veteran, started it back in 1956 with just $100 in his pocket. Maintaining it has been tough. The U.S. Steel and wide swaths of the manufacturing industry have been on the decline for decades due to factors such as declining demand and the inability to compete in global markets. Toledo once buzzed during the steel manufacturing heyday in the 1950s. Now, the unemployment rate is 6.6%, compared to the national average of 4.1%.
We're one of the last standing ones in this area.
Still standing and getting a boost from Trump's tactics. Zeiter says 5 international companies have already reached out to do business.
We had Italy, we had France, we had Great Britain. We had a Canadian company reach out to us.
You had a Canadian company?
Yeah.
He says it's the first time in 70 years a Canadian company has called wanting to work with them. Across town.
Looks like it's working for some people. Looks like the tariff is working for some people. Canadians wants to work with American steel business. That's wild.
At Wurzel's bike shop, owner Jill Wurzel also has heard from an overseas distributor.
I just got that a few minutes ago before you came in, and I was reading it and I about had a heart attack.
Wurzel received an email from a Taiwanese company informing her if tariffs do go into effect, she may have to pay an increase of up to 79%.
That's a huge impact on a small business.
She buys from China, Taiwan, and Cambodia and worries how tariffs would impact costs to customers and her ability to maintain her staff.
Payroll would be reduced and somebody might lose their job, or a full-time person will be part-time.
The Wurzel family has been in the bike business for 80 years, since her grandfather founded it in 1945. The threat of tariffs is now a concern for a new generation of employees. Wurzel's nephew and his wife just quit their jobs a few weeks ago to join the family business.
We're a little bit nervous, but we trust in Jill. We know that she knows this business really well.
Back at Swanton Welding, also a new generation, one hoping Trump's tactics will benefit their industry. Allison Fagerman is an 18-year-old welder who works with her father.
I'm hoping that it gets better, and I'm sure it will. I feel like we're on a bumpy road, and eventually we'll get to a smoother road.
Jason Carroll, CNN, Toledo, Ohio.
Lots of family ties through the years in those businesses there.
Thank you for tuning into the live show. You know what time it is. It is your boy Genesis. Double tap your screen, subscribe to the channel. Yes, it is on. The tariff war, the trade war, whatever you want to call it. Just say it is a renegotiation of trade deals between the United States and the rest of the world. Like you see now, EU ready to play ball with the United States. A lot of companies, a lot of other countries are ready to tariff the United States 0. Okay. If Trump didn't do what he did, none of this would happen.
The President of the United States pushing the bounds of his executive power farther and farther.
Now, what is this
across
Harvard
so many
situation?
realms of American life, including the courts, the legal profession, the media, and elite education. Now he's going head-to-head with the nation's oldest and wealthiest institution of higher learning, Harvard University.
Unfortunately, Harvard has not taken the president or the administration's demands seriously.
The White House is taking on Harvard after it became the first of the elite universities to defy the administration's efforts to take on so-called woke campus policies, restrictions that the university says amount to unacceptable limits on freedom of expression. Last night, the administration froze more than $2 billion in federal grants to the university. And today, the president is threatening Harvard's tax-exempt status, suggesting in a post on his Truth Social platform that it should be, quote, taxed as a political entity, end quote, unless it acts in, quote, the public interest.
When it comes to Harvard, as I said, the president has been quite clear they must follow federal law. He also wants to see Harvard apologize, and Harvard should apologize for the egregious anti-Semitism that took place on their college campus against Jewish American students.
Trump officials portray their fight against the most prestigious and liberal universities as an effort to combat anti-Semitism after contentious campus protests against the Israel-Hamas war in Gaza. Harvard sees the battle differently. Its president declaring the university will not surrender its independence or relinquish its constitutional rights. Let's start with our panel, CNN contributor and co-host of the Interview podcast at the New York Times, Lulu Garcia-Navarro, CNN political commentator, Republican pollster, Kristen Soltis Anderson, former senior advisor to both the Biden and Harris presidential campaigns, Adrian Elrod, and CNN senior political commentator, Scott Jennings is here. Welcome to all of you. Thank you very much for being here. Kristen Soltis Anderson, I want to start with you on the big picture for Harvard University and the way that the administration is doing this. Because there's $2 billion already on the line. There are billions more that could be affected. Those grants funding things like cancer research. But of course, there has been that explosion of protests. We've seen many anti-Semitic incidents on a lot of these campuses, and this has become a real lightning rod on the right. Of all of the things that we have seen happen so far this week, the number of things that certainly Democrats are basically apoplectic about, how do you see this confrontation with Harvard and other elite institutions fitting in?
So a confrontation with an institution like Harvard is one where Trump has picked a very ripe target. Confidence in higher education has really been plummeting in this country over the last decade. Even as recently as 2015, Gallup found a majority of Republicans said when you asked, do you have confidence in higher education? They said yes. And those numbers have fallen. They've fallen precipitously for Republicans, but also for Democrats. And I think part of the problem is, to quote Office Space, the question of what is it you would say you do here? That for a lot of institutions of higher education, that's not a question that they've clearly answered. And so when you ask people, why don't you have confidence? They think they've veered too far off mission. Some of these institutions, as you noted, they contain multitudes, right? They do great things like cancer research, but they have other things that I think a lot of taxpayers may be saying, I don't know if I want to fund this. Trump has sensed that, and that's why he views them as such a good target.
I will say, Lulu, these institutions of higher learning have educated an awful lot of the bipartisan people who come here to Washington and end up in positions of power.
I was about to say, it's always surprising to me that Harvard is like put as this kind of liberal bastion when you think about a number of Republicans Republicans and Wall Street executives who've gone
Yeah,
there.
well, we can put up a number of the Trump allies who attended Harvard. Now, I will say that the youngest of those that you see on your screen are about my age, so they're elder millennials, so perhaps a lot has changed in the intervening time. But I think, I really take Kristen's point, right? For the middle of the country, beating up on Harvard is not a problem for them, right? But on the other hand, there does seem to perhaps be some hypocrisy going on as well.
I mean, I think to Kristen's point, and we saw this with the DEI fight, there was a reason that they did that first with Harvard, affirmative action, et cetera. Harvard is a ripe target. If you've never been there and you always know people who've been to Harvard, they'll tell you in the first 5 seconds that they went to Cambridge. They were in Cambridge. It's very annoying to the rest of us.
They went to a college outside Boston. I actually went to Cambridge, the original, for graduate school. So some people will say this to me. I'm like, I'm sorry, I'm not as highbrow as those of you who went to the second Cambridge, at least.
So you can see, just even in our conversation, it brings up some animus. But the wider context within which this sits is, of course, what is the purpose of what the administration is doing here? And we know from Chris Rufo, from Project 2025, and other ideas that have been put out there that they want to really take down anything that is viewed as the quote-unquote liberal establishment. And so what the administration asked of Harvard wasn't just about anti-Semitism. They asked things that were about who they admit, who gets tenure, things that are quite frankly, not the remit of the federal government. And if you think about how Republicans have accused Democrats over and over again of weaponizing government, of weaponizing the federal government, here we're seeing this administration actually push into something that has never really been done in the same way before.
I mean, Scott Jennings, that seems like a fair point. I mean, if Democrats were doing this in a way that conservatives felt like was taking on some of their interests in these higher institutions, I feel like I would hear you talking about, hey, government's supposed to be more limited.
Why would Democrats be complaining about Harvard? Like 96% of the political contributions from the faculty go to Democrats from Harvard. There's no diversity of thought among the faculty there. And by the way, I should say, I've had some experience with it. I was a fellow at the IOP. Kristen was as well. I taught a class at the Harvard Kennedy School for a number of semesters. I had a good experience, but I think...
But no diversity of thought, apparently.
But I think in recent years, particularly since October the 7th, the civil rights of these Jewish students on campus have clearly been violated. I don't think the university, Harvard, Columbia, a lot of these other Ivies have taken near enough steps to protect these students. They've been chased around campus, barred from buildings. Buildings have been taken over. I mean, it's ridiculous what's going on. And here's the deal. They take federal money. They have a $53 billion endowment. They take federal money. If you want to continue to take federal money, you're going to have to listen to the people who dole it out. And that's the Trump administration who are standing up for these Jewish students. If they want to give up the federal money, you can create, I guess, the culture of hate that you want, and that's fine. But right now, they're entangled with the federal government, and they're going to have to deal with the president.
Adrian, I mean, I will say what the Trump administration is trying to do goes well beyond the anti-Semitism questions
1,000%.
And the points that are very well taken from you. And I have spoken to a lot of Jewish students and families who are concerned about their Jewish students on these campuses. There are absolutely challenges there. But this is also DEI. It's hiring, admissions. It is looking at some of the viewpoint diversity. That seems like something we could argue about. But how do you see it?
Well, first of all, I think Kristen's exactly right that this is something that this is where Trump is really good. His instincts are good. He knows he is delivering basically red meat to his base by saying, I'm going after a liberal institution like Harvard. I also agree with your point that what would happen if Republicans, all of a sudden, if Oral Roberts University or some of these super conservative Republican-leaning organizations were also targeted by Democrats. So it goes both ways. I think the bottom line is this. This sets a dangerous precedent. If Harvard caves on this, which so far they have not, they've stood very firm and strong. If they cave on this, this sets a very dangerous precedent for universities that are not as well funded as Harvard. Harvard is the wealthiest university in the country, but what if we start going down the road with some of these universities that could be targeted that don't have the endowments that Harvard does? So I think, in the words of Barack Obama, who tweeted last night, applauds Harvard for standing strong against unlawful and ham-handed attempts by Donald Trump to stifle free speech and public education. And I think that that's the point that Democrats need to continue to drive, and anyone who wants to support the freedom of education.
And the only thing I'll say, to Scott's point is as follows. He said he'll have to tangle with the president if you get federal money. That's assuming that somehow this federal money is the president's. And in fact, this federal money is the people's, and it is the people who pay taxes. And the idea of the federal government is that you are supposed to actually, look at the people of the United States and try to deal with them fairly.
And who do the people elect to be stewards of their money? The President of the United States.
Yes, but
Who's
nobody.
standing up for these students?
Congress.
Facts. Who has to spend the money? Who has to cut the checks? Who has to cut your check? Who has to faithfully execute the laws of this country? It's the president.
But if
They're
this president
the
is
civil rights of these
trying
students
to
are being violated.
this president is trying to weaponize the federal purse strings. And the reason that this president is trying to weaponize the federal purse strings is for political reasons. Now, you can agree with those political reasons or you cannot agree with those political reasons. But poll after poll is actually saying that what the American people actually care about is their pocketbook and their purse strings. Issues like DEI, issues like all these other, things that they're getting involved in. That poll's very, very low. There's just a poll that came out from UMass. 2%, 3% of the Americans care about these issues. This is something that Donald Trump is
Do the
investing
Jewish students
in.
care about it? Do their families care about it? He's standing up for people who have no advocates on these campuses. Nobody on these campuses will stand up for them because it's not in vogue to do so on the campus.
Facts.
Trump shows up and
This
stands
is
up
a
for the
wider
kids,
issue than
and that's why they're upset.
Absolutely. I think
This
we've all
is not
made it
about
very clear that we
anti-Semitism.
certainly stand with the Jewish students.
The only
who've been
people who don't make it
persecuted
clear
on
are the
these
Harvard
campuses.
people. The Ivies, they don't make it clear. They don't make it clear.
I think we can all agree that
Well,
not
we're
all
here.
of these
They're
universities
there.
handled this. But to Casey's point, this is a much bigger, broader deal.
Trump is the president of the people. Look at what happened when he was in Miami, UFC 314. UFC 314, see what happened? Everybody was on their feet screaming and saying USA, chanting USA. We're going to see that video before we finish this live stream, but I want us to see very important trade situation between China and the United States and what is going on. But I just wanted to say, this man is a man of the people, okay? As much as they try to spoil his name or just say some trash about him, of course, Trump has, his situation as well, but
We are getting a clearer picture of how
he's who he
Americans are
is.
feeling about President Trump and his economic policy now
Oh, wait,
12
we've done
weeks
this.
into his second term. CNN chief data analyst Harry
Hold
Inton is here to run the numbers. Hello, Harry. Happy
Hello.
Sunday to you.
We've seen your numbers.
So where
Thank
are
you.
we?
There we go, the 5. The 5. The 5.
Party
Here
that
we
holds
go.
no cards has suddenly found one to play, the fear card. Democrats are now warning that President Trump is going to disappear you. Why? Because 47 floated the idea of deporting some of the most twisted, violent American criminals, think Hannibal Lecter on steroids, and shipping them off to a foreign prison.
We're getting rid of our criminals from out of the United States that were allowed to come in by Biden. We're getting them out. And the president is helping us with that, President Bukele.
Could we use it for violent criminals, our own violent criminals?
I call them homegrown criminals.
Yes.
I mean, the
homegrowns.
The ones that grew up and
Yeah.
something went wrong and they hit people over the head with a baseball bat. We have, and push people into subways just before the train gets there, like you see happening sometimes. We are looking into it and we want to do it. I would love to do this.
And now the left's word that Trump is about to disappear The View.
We are watching our neighbors, students, and friends being fired, targeted, and disappeared. It is real.
The Trump administration's claim legally is that they can take anyone in the United States and disappear them to a foreign country.
There is not
That's the new
included in
word,
Title
disappear.
18, send someone out of the country, much less to a hellhole prison in another country.
What stops Donald Trump from wrongfully labeling any American as a non-citizen gang member and abducting them in the dead of night and rendering them to a foreign prison to be tortured?
He's going to do that to U.S. citizens. I think the hosts of The View are about to get administratively errored.
Dems in the media also playing the fear card over their so-called Maryland dad, championing the return of the alleged MS-13 gangbanger and designated foreign terrorist.
Oh, man. This man right here, wildin', man. Check this out. Wait.
We're about to get administratively errored.
Dems and the media also playing the fear card over their so-called Maryland dad, championing the return of the alleged MS-13 gangbanger and designated foreign terrorist, Kilmar Abrego Garcia, after Trump sent the Salvadorian migrant back home to El Salvador. Democrat Maryland Senator Chris Van Hollen is actually going to fly to El Salvador to show his solidarity.
You've got a Maryland man who's the father of 3, illegally detained in a notorious prison in El Salvador. It is absolutely unjust and illegal to have this Marylander detained one more day in a notorious prison in El Salvador.
Was the senator crying?
I don't think so. I think his voice was breaking, but I'm not sure.
It's going through puberty.
Maybe. I mean, it happens goes for a while. Obviously, the rule of law is important. I don't know whether the president was joking about homegrown. I think it might behoove them to maybe clarify. He said it more than once, but it kind of reminds me of the third term talk. So I'm not exactly sure. But I also know this, that for years we had no system to vet anybody that was just walking across the border into our country. Not only that, President Biden made up this thing, the CNHV, Cuba, Haiti, Nicaragua, Venezuela parole program, so that they didn't even have to make an effort to cross the border illegally. They could just fly in. And now we have to vet all of them to get them out. And it seems like this continual problem for the Biden administration that they're not exactly being held accountable for, because Biden's like really doing anything. Kamala's not doing interviews. Everybody else is like melting into the woodwork, and all the books are coming out saying that nobody really knew what they were doing anyway. So I think that is a problem. And I also believe that if the Democrats want to fly to the border, now they want to go. Yeah. Now they want to check. And so I'm for the rule of law, and I think this is actually a very interesting case. The White House had said, they said on Monday that for 72 hours, the press got it wrong, and that the Supreme Court's decision was actually in their favor 9-0, and complained then that the press got it wrong for 72 hours. But also well, then if they got it wrong, then 72 hours on that day, tell everybody. And then you could have a debate, and you could have some people saying they're right, they're wrong. Jonathan Turley on America's Newsroom today thought that the White House had a good point. So I don't know. I actually don't know where it goes from here. I'm curious to hear what the judge thinks, because at this point, going down to get him doesn't seem. I don't think Van Hollen is coming back with Maryland.
Excuse me, El Presidente. Yeah. I'd like to see MS-13 in the mega prison.
Yeah. Well, Bukele has already said in answer to CNN, Caitlin Collins in the Oval Office yesterday. He says, number one, I am not going to release him to the United States. I don't have the power to take him out of a prison and force him to come to your country, number one. And number two, I don't want to release this gang member out of my prison and put him in my country that I've turned from one of the most violent countries and the murder capital of the world. I'm not going to allow him to go out and kill my people, which is a real commentary on this. Look, this is very simple. 2 courts have ruled that this guy is an MS-13 gang member. He has been deported as a result of a hearing and an appeal by an immigration court. He came here not as a member of, not through any asylum claim. He didn't come through a port of entry. He was a got-away. He didn't come in as a protected status person. He is a got-away who decided to come into this country. He's been here for 11 years. There is a reliable document that he's a member of MS-13, but even that doesn't matter anymore, because there are 2 courts, immigration courts, that ordered him deported. He did not make any kind of case that allowed them to decide that he shouldn't be deported. Now, let's take that to where we are now. In addition to the fact that he's illegal, he's from El Salvador, he's in El Salvador now. No local district court judge has the right to say to the United States, you better go over there. What are we going to do? Send SEAL Team 6 over to the prison in El Salvador and bring this guy back? He doesn't belong here. He's illegal. He came here illegally. Immigration court said, get your tail out of this country. And now the Democrats are freaking out. This guy, Van Hollen, this senator, he should be ashamed of himself. If you want to go over there and you want to check on an illegal who is in this country illegally and is a member of MS-13, and you don't want to talk about Rachel Morin, who is from your state. He did. This is an example.
Today.
Oh, good. I'm glad. Today he figured out he
No,
should
he didn't.
have. Let me finish. Okay? This is the problem. We've got people who belong in Congress, who've been elected to Congress, who are worried about illegal criminals and not worried about American citizens like Joe Biden. And that's the reason we're in this mess in the first place. Start caring about American citizens.
Jessica Tarlov.
America first.
Hi.
So, Senator, now I'm going to say Van
Catch your
Halen,
breath.
'cause you
Catch
did.
your breath.
Yeah, I did.
Catch your breath.
Which
Okay,
makes
catch
him
your
a little
breath.
bit cooler.
Yeah.
But did speak about Rachel Morin and has since she was murdered. That first and foremost, Abrego Garcia. There is no proof that he was an MS-13 member, and it has been debunked many times.
It's been debunked
yes,
by
it has.
liberal
It was
newspapers.
That's
in
not
a
true.
Court of law, a section I-113 or 123 is reliable,
Should you say stop?
verifiable proof
It was
that you were
Judge
a member of a
Jennings?
gang, and he was
You're
never
telling
able
Judge
to
Jennings to
rebut it.
stop?
It was based on double hearsay testimony and also a detective who was indicted merely weeks later for providing confidential information to a sex worker. He was also allegedly an alcoholic. That's how we got into this. But the point is that this man has been living in this country out in public, meeting on an annual basis with his DHS caseworker. He goes in once a year. He talks to them. They know where he works. He's an on-the-books worker. This is not somebody who is a gangbanger. This is not somebody who has committed any other crime besides being here in this country. And he came here also based on credible threat of being murdered by a gang at home who was threatening his entire family. The reason that Democrats are talking about the fact that anyone could, quote unquote, be disappeared is that you can see a full-blown constitutional crisis playing out in front of our eyes. The Supreme Court ruled 9-0 that he had to be returned. President Bukhari is lying when he says that he can't get him back. We know that he can return people because he returned people from the original shipment. There were women that were sent there, and he said, oh, no, you shouldn't be here. And there were some Venezuelans that he didn't want. He said, okay, you shouldn't be here, and he shipped them on back. They think that it's funny. Getting that hot mic moment where Donald Trump and the El Salvadorian president are talking, they're kind of loitering around at the front of the Oval Office, where they're joking about, like, oh, wouldn't it be great if you could take our homegrown ones? You cannot legally send Americans to an El Salvadorian prison camp, no matter what they have done. Senator Kennedy was on our air earlier this afternoon with Sandra and John and said as much.
Okay.
You look at, one more thing to say. Actually, multiple more things
Here
to
we
say.
go.
But what is most important is that under the Alien Enemies Act, you deserve due process. And that's what the Supreme Court ruled. And if you go back to World War II, when we were invoking this same act, that people who were here undocumented from Japan, from Germany, from Italy, were allowed to go into a court where they could argue that they weren't a danger to this nation. Abrego Garcia was not afforded that right to come into court and to argue as to why he should not be deported. And it is not the same thing to deport someone to their home country as to send them to a prison.
Well, then,
you know
okay,
that.
First of all, the 9-0 decision by the Supreme Court held that the judge was wrong to think that she or he could enjoin the whole nation and dictate to a president international policy.
Facilitate his return.
No. The facilitation, as the Attorney General herself said, was that if they decide to return him, no judge can tell the president you have to go into another country and pull a citizen of that country and bring him back here when he's illegal here in the first place.
All right. Greg, is this a constitutional crisis?
You know what's funny? I don't care. I honestly don't care. I bet the viewers at home feel this narrative at work. What is strange about this story? What is the strange thing about this story? The majority of Americans favor deportation of illegals, especially those who are criminals, but they favor deportation of illegal. The last, 8 days, 7 days, has been around about one person.
Yep.
One person. I don't even know his name. I don't care. If he's here illegal, he's got to go. We are not responsible for the faulty process that allowed him to be here before. Is he a terrorist? Is he not a terrorist? I don't care. Let me give you an analogy. This will be good for you because you like sports. You walk down to your box seats. There's somebody sitting in your seat. And you go, why is this guy sitting in my seat? And they go, well, he's not supposed to be there. But you know, he's a family man. He's got a job. It's like, yeah, but that's not on me. That's my seat. Don't you have a process for having him leave that seat? Yes, we do. Can he go back to his seat? Why doesn't he go back to his seat? It's not my concern where that seat is. He's got to go. Yes, but did you know he's been trying really hard to be a good citizen? He's really quiet. He's not making. No, you don't understand. He's got to go. Now, we knew that this process wouldn't be easy. It was really easy for Democrats to open the floodgates and be seen as the heroes. Look how compassionate we are. It's always going to be harder to send them back. And you're going to be treated like a villain every single step of the way, because adults fix the problems that children's cause. And sometimes the adults have to do big stuff to fix the big problems that were caused by Democrats, who are, in this case, are the children. As for this, why are they talking about this disappear fear? It's because the bat signal went up. Last week it was chaos. Now it's disappear fear. You put it on the mountain of imaginary concerns, along with paper straws, the climate apocalypse, Russian collusion, white supremacy, Musk is a Nazi. This is what I mean when you can feel the narrative. You can feel it. You go like, oh, now I understand this. This whole thing, this guy is nothing more than a tool that is being used to subvert the needs and concerns of the American public. This is why they're latching onto it. You mentioned how the deportation, in a way, has the same issues as the invasion. It's a mirror. Biden opened the border, millions came in, and surely murderers and rapists were part of that. Now we're deporting hundreds of thousands, and surely one or two might not be criminal. However, compare the error. In one of these errors, Americans don't die. At worst, a guy gets sent to a country he doesn't want to go to. You know what? I can live with that.
Into a prison camp, not just out into the wild.
Look, I'm sorry, Jessica. I understand your concern, but I refuse to care about one person who's an illegal alien when the mental shelf space that I have is now reserved for victims of crime, which I've been talking about for years. This manufactured narrative, family man, father of three, coming from the media, who with the same intensity talked about having children was bad for the climate, are now telling us that when you have children, you are now a pillar of the community. If that guy was a white American citizen, they would just call him a MAGA extremist. But he's an illegal alien and he has kids, and now he's the spirit of the community. He's a good guy.
Yeah, but in addition to that, there are two courts that ruled he had his due process.
Yeah.
No one, I don't care about any of that.
60 Minutes found that 75% of the people who have been sent to that prison.
Oh, gosh. Jessica. He said, oh, Jessica, please. Jessica is actually strong. I mean, she sits between, four Republicans, four conservatives, and she still has the confidence to say the things in her heart. And that's what America is. I respect her.
For one more
Do
thing.
not have a criminal record here. Have
Really?
not. Yes,
60
really.
Minutes went over and interviewed them?
Yeah, actually they did, and they actually spoke to the lawyers involved in these cases.
60 Minutes said the laptop
Talk to
was
any
fake,
defense.
Oh, God. Oh, man. Jessica be getting it over there, man. She be getting it. Check this out.
Welcome back, Bill. Fox News Alert now as we top a new hour. President Trump will be greeting El Salvadoran President Bukele at the White House any moment now. Illegal immigration at the top of the agenda for the meeting. At the same time, a new DOJ task force is reportedly focusing on immigration reform. The team is targeting illegal migrants with criminal backgrounds who are getting Social Security benefits. This is the Faulkner Focus. On this Monday morning, I'm Sandra Smith in for Harris. Here's Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem on that this morning.
If they're here illegally, then they certainly shouldn't be using that Social Security number to be on our programs, and they should be removed or given the opportunity to go home on their own. That's the one thing President Trump would like, is everybody to be given the opportunity to go home if they would wish to.
All right, so Secretary of State Marco Rubio said the U.S. sent 10 more illegal migrants to El Salvador. That is the latest group since the country last month accepted hundreds of alleged violent Venezuelan gang members in the U.S. illegally. Illegal border crossings since the president began his second term have plummeted, but he is not letting up. He authorized the military to take control of federal land along the U.S. southern border. You can see the effect of Trump's crackdown in these photos of the Darien Gap. Before Trump took office, the treacherous passage between Colombia and Panama saw thousands of migrants a day trying to make their way into the U.S. Recent photos show that same path is now nearly empty. Senior White House correspondent Peter Doocy has more on Trump's meeting. Hello, Peter.
Sandra, good morning. And the honor guard is all lined up here at the White House. You can see it over my shoulder, awaiting for the El Salvador president's arrival. The president and his team have spent the whole weekend talking up this new U.S.-El Salvador relationship, especially the part that allows federal officials here to send dangerous accused criminals there and populate El Salvador's prisons.
He's doing a fantastic job, and he's taking care of a lot of problems that we have that we really wouldn't be able to take care of from a cost standpoint. And he's been amazing. We have...
Okay, of course, we all know what happened.
AG Pam Bondi making it clear that crimes
out.
have consequences, and the guilty would be held accountable as
People have been attacking Tesla dealerships for weeks now, okay, since Trump won the election and he was inaugurated. And, of course, Elon Musk became the commander of Doge, and he's been saving and finding out fraud. But people have been unsatisfied or dissatisfied, and they've been going to do some really crazy things at Tesla dealerships, which to me is just absurd. How would you say, because you don't agree with what Elon Musk is doing, your next cause of action would be to go vandalize a Tesla dealership? That's just crazy to me. Absolutely crazy to me.
Administration cracks down on politically motivated violence. Here is 40-year-old Jameson Wagner charged in connection with the arson attacks. He could face up to 40 years in prison. He's accused of burning 2 Teslas outside a New Mexico dealership in February and then spray painting the building and 6 more cars with messages like "Die Elon," "Tesla Nazi," and swastika symbols.
7 weeks later, he's accused of setting fire to the Republican Party building in Albuquerque. Wagner joins a growing list of people accused of Tesla vandalism, which the Attorney General has described as domestic terrorism.
So senior national correspondent William LaJeunesse reporting on more on all this as we begin a new hour.
Somebody say, no wonder. Look at the guy. Let's go look at the guy one more time, because Jesus. Now, take a look at this guy. It says, terrorizing Tesla. Look at his lips. What is that? Purple lipstick or what? Purple lip. I mean, what is going on here, people? What is going on here? Look at this guy saying and wishing for crazy things to happen to Elon Musk. I mean, think about it. What are you doing? And why do you have a purple or a blue lipstick on? Why, bro? Or sis? Or, I mean, at this point, it's probably gender fluid. If you ask him, it's probably not a guy or a girl. It's gender fluid. And his pronouns are they,
which
them.
the Attorney General has described as domestic terrorism.
So senior national correspondent William LaJeunesse reporting on more on all this as we begin a new hour. William, hello. Good morning.
Hey, good morning, Bill. You know, across the country, you're right. Police report dozens of cases of vandalism or arson of Tesla cars or dealerships. And now we're seeing the prosecutions, right? So this is the face of what the administration calls a domestic terrorist. Prosecutors say 40-year-old Jameson Wagner of Albuquerque made the mistake of driving his own vehicle to both firebombings, and surveillance cameras at the Tesla dealership and the GOP headquarters caught him torching both locations. Now, at Tesla, investigators found a glass jar filled with a flammable liquid along with graffiti sprayed on the building, 6 cars saying "Die Elon," Tesla Nazi Inc., along with swastikas. Wagner allegedly wore a black hoodie and a mask, but at one point the hoodie fell off, allowing police to identify him, according to a court affidavit. A month later, cameras picked him up at the same suspect, carrying a white box filled with explosives where he firebombed the Republican headquarters and spray-painted ICE KKK on the building.
This was not just an attack on our building. This is an attack on our values, our free speech, and the right of every New Mexican that wants to participate in the democratic process without fear.
Surveillance video showed the suspect fleeing in a white Hyundai sedan. Well, in the search warrant of Wagner's home, investigators found a white Hyundai, a white cardboard box containing 8 homemade bombs and ignitable liquids matching those used in both bombings. And they found a black paint-stained hoodie, black and red spray cans, and the cardboard stencil used to paint the letters KKK ICE. Wagner, according to the Albuquerque Journal, is a registered Democrat. He is charged with multiple counts of destruction of property by arson, could land him in prison for 40 years. Another man, Paul Kim, is accused of shooting and firebombing multiple Teslas in Vegas. He'll be arraigned today, Bill. Bondi saying she will not negotiate these cases. Back to you.
Okay, William, thanks. That beat rolls on. William Lajeunesse in LA, thank you on that. I'm Steve Ducey.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
Thank you for tuning in to the live show. You know what time it is. It is your boy Genesis. Double tap your screen, subscribe to the channel. Here is the face of the man that was vandalizing a Tesla dealership and, well, doing all sorts to Tesla cars. But take a look at what it looks like. That's why, parents, love your kids, okay? Check on your kids, because what in the world is going on here, people? What is going on here? This is the fire bombing suspect on the Tesla dealership. Such crazy behavior just because you don't agree with what Elon Musk is doing. But anyway, it is going down now. Joe Biden is addressing the nation. I'm sure some of you know he was going to address the nation today. Some of you don't know. But Joe Biden, some people say Sleepy Joe. Some people call him Sleepy Joe. Some people just call him Joe Biden. Or we're just going to call him Joe Biden. Is okay, let me see if we can see that in real time. Let's go. Anyway, if you haven't subscribed to the channel, consider subscribing. If you haven't, double tap your screen. Double tap your screen. If you haven't subscribed, subscribe to the channel. And we also have memberships. It is $4.99. Support the channel by joining the memberships. It is $4.99. And also you can give gifts and whatever, super chat. Okay, moving forward. Here goes Sleepy Joe.
It's never been this divided. Granted, it's roughly 30%, but it's a 30% that has no heart. What we see in America. 180
built such a strong
Man,
economy
please.
that it has taken a great act of economic self-sabotage to hurt it.
Okay, here we go. Are you gonna play or not? Are you gonna play or not? Okay, looks like it's not gonna play. All right. I guess Sleepy Joe doesn't want to come on. Doesn't want to come on, ladies and gentlemen. Doesn't want to come on. Let's try it one more time. Okay, looks like it's back.
With 4 kids and a grandpa living with us.
What is going
Remember,
on?
my bed, our bed headboard was near my dad's and mom's room. O'Malley there with me, and I mean that sincerely. It really matters.
They said remix.
You know, I always kid Maryland because Delaware, the second smallest state, we share the eastern shore of Maryland with Maryland, but we're close friends. And folks, you know, it's no surprise that he did a hell of a job when I asked him to be commissioner of the Social Security. And the reason I did that is not an ordinary transition for a governor, but I knew, I mean this from the bottom of my heart, I knew we needed someone with some guts, some toughness, who'd fight for every single penny that it needed, that would try to restore the integrity of the system. And to everyone here today, I want to thank you, all of you, very much for this award. It means a great deal to me coming from you, and I mean that sincerely. It means a great deal. You're in the front lines every single day. You're helping, you're advocating for your fellow Americans, Americans with disability. It's a big deal. We talk about what happened in the physical side of it if we didn't have Social Security. Think of what the psychic calm gives so many people who just don't know where to go, don't know how to traverse what needs to be done, or alone. Last fall on the White House lawn, we celebrated the anniversary of the Americans with Disabilities Act. As a United States Senator 400 years ago, I was looking back on it. God almighty, I've been doing this 50 years. It's hell turning 40 years old, anyway. But back in the year 1990, I was the co-sponsor of the Americans with Disabilities Act as a United States Senator. In my view, and I suspect many of you, it was one of the most consequential civil rights laws in American history. That's what got me involved in politics in the first place. Delaware, like Maryland, was one of those states, was a slave state. We had all the vestiges of what was going on back in the day. We were one of those states that still, I remember moving from Scranton, Pennsylvania down to Wilmington, Delaware, and Cole died. My dad moved back to where we could get a job. I remember I pulled into, my mom would drive us on the Philadelphia Pike connecting Wilmington and Philadelphia. And we lived in an apartment complex. And she'd drive us it was only about half a mile to Holy Rosary School in Claremont. But it was so dangerous, she wouldn't let us walk up because of access road. And I remember pulling into the parking lot. And I'd never seen hardly any black people in Scranton at the time.
Okay, here we go.
I was only going in 4th grade. And I remember seeing the kids going by at the time called colored kids on a bus going by. They never turned right to go to Claymont High School. I wondered why. Asked my mom, why? So in Delaware, they're not allowed to go to school, in public school, with white kids, honey. That sparked my sense of outrage as a kid, just like it does. I mean, and these young kids right here can tell you things affect them when they learn about something that's really just unfair and unjust. You know, my dad was an honorable man. And my dad used to have an expression. He said, Joey, your job's about a lot more than a paycheck. It's about your dignity. It's about respect. It's about being able to look your kid in the eye and say, honey, it's going to be okay, and mean it. Well, that's what you're all about. That's what the legislation is about. It's about dignity. Simple dignity.
Okay.
Everyone.
Okay.
Everyone.
There we go.
Deserves to be treated with dignity, regardless of their standing, regardless of their economic situation, regardless of who they are. Making sure that more than 60 million Americans who are living with disabilities are treated with dignity is who we are as Americans. That's what it's about. I mean it. Dignity at work, at school, in their communities. In every corner of American life, laws like the ADA need advocates like you. You're the ones that keep it going, God love you. You fight like hell every single day to make sure the law is respected and your clients' rights are protected. So from the bottom of my heart, I mean this. I give you my word as a Biden. From the bottom of my heart, I say thank you. Thank you for what you're doing. Thank you for your commitment to the dignity of all Americans. Because that's what ultimately this is about. Folks, today I want to talk to you about an issue that's front and center right now for millions of Americans, Social Security. You know, some of you may know the Democrats have declared today the Save Social Security National Action Day, National Day of Action, I should say. We know just how much Social Security matters to people's lives. Everyone in this room fights for people with disabilities who rely on Social Security to survive. To survive. Not just the physical side, it's the mental side. It's the mental side. You make sure folks get the benefits they earn after a lifetime of hard work. The work they do is more than just a profession, what you do. It's a calling. It's not just a profession. And Social Security is more than a government program. It's a sacred promise. We made it a sacred promise. 73 million Americans receive Social Security. Mm-hmm. From their first paycheck through their entire life, they pay into Social Security. And in return, they count on Social Security to be for them when they're going to need it. Folks, must never, ever betray that trust or turn our backs on that obligation. That's why during my presidency, we protected Social Security and made it stronger. Martin, the governor can tell you. We came into office, Social Security Administration had its lowest staffing, she referenced it, lowest staffing levels in 50 years. And demand was going through the roof because of my generation and the baby boom generation, reaching the retirement age. So the demands on Social Security increased significantly. Our administration secured nearly $2 billion to reduce the backlogs and improve customer service. We slashed wait times for folks in need who are calling the 1-800 number. We got it down to under 13 minutes. It used to be 3 times that long when we took office. We made it easier for people to get help with their claims online. Reduced how long it takes to review a case. We fixed the appeal system to make it uniform in all 50 states, which made a difference. We strengthened the anti-fraud measures to protect people's identities and to make sure benefits are going to people who actually they belong to. By the way, those 300-year-old folk getting that Social Security, I want to meet them because I like to figure out how they live that. Hell of a thing, man. I'm looking for longevity because it's hell when you turn 40 years old. But as a result, by the time we left office, we had improved every single line of customer service. from applying for disability to filing an appeal to reporting fraud. It all became more efficient and more effective. And I'll bet it made your jobs easier, too, in the process. Now, these achievements may not sound so glamorous to most people, but you know, they're absolutely essential. In my view, one of the most important jobs of any elected official is to make sure the government works for the people, works for all people. It's understandable. They can understand what it is. And then we keep our promises to the people, to all the people. That's exactly what we did, thanks to all of you. I also signed into law the Social Security Fairness Act. That act eliminated 2 unfair rules so public employees wouldn't get shortchanged. The government pension offset and the windfall elimination provision can never come in ever again. But as a result, more than 2 million people are now finally receiving the full benefits they earned. And remember, we also faced a constant threat by some members, Republican members of the Congress, to cut and gut Social Security, period. Cut and gut it, period. They wanted to let Social Security expire every 5 years. That was the proposal. Let it expire every 5 years unless reauthorized by the Congress. Who in the hell do they think they are? Every 5 years and then wait around and be, no. I will not go further or get in trouble, but look, folks. Can you imagine the chaos it would have charged? Every 5 years, Congress is going to step up. You imagine this Congress stepping up? They threatened to raise the retirement age as well. Now, that might not be a hardship for someone working in a comfortable job. But if you're on your feet all day, you're doing manual labor all day, you're working with a disability, it's a very different matter. And then they even tried to force cuts on Social Security during the negotiation of the debt ceiling. These are wonderful guys. Last time this guy had the job, he raised the debt ceiling because of an enormous and profligate tax cut to the super wealthy. And then he said, look, then they started talking to his colleagues. Well, maybe we can do something about Social Security, but we got to do something about the debt ceiling. How are we going to we can find the money in Social Security? Unless we do what they wanted to cut Social Security. Not on my watch. We refused to go along with any of that. Look, Americans have always been able to count on these benefits. And let me pause a second here and say this. We talk about the physical needs that Social Security provides for people, particularly hardworking people, people retired, people on the edge. But the psychological impact is profound. Profound. You're a man or a woman, you're 70s, 80 years old, you're not in good shape, you have a disability, and you hear the check may not come. How do you sleep at night? How do you sleep at night? We lived up in Wilmington in a 3-bedroom split-level home in a new development, 40 homes, with 4 kids and a grandpop living with us. And I remember our headboard was near my dad's and mom's room. And you could tell when Dad was restless. I remember asking one night my mom, what's the matter with Dad? The next morning, she said, it's found out that we're not going to provide insurance anymore where he works. Well, imagine if you're somebody who's been struggling your whole life. You're literally counting on Social Security to buy your food, just to get by. And you hear the threats about what may happen. Many of these beneficiaries, that's their only income. If they were cut or taken away, it'd be devastating, devastating for millions of people. And the psychological pressure we put people under by having this debate is absolutely devastating. That's why we work so damn hard to make Social Security Administration stronger than it's been in years. And that's why I asked the governor to take over, by the way. But look what's happened now. Fewer than 100 days, this new administration has made so much, done so much damage and so much destruction. It's kind of breathtaking it could happen that soon. They've taken a hatchet to the Social Security Administration, pushing an additional 7,000 employees, 7,000 out the door in that time, including the most seasoned career officials. Now they're getting ready to push thousands more out the door. Already we can see the effects. For example, thousands of people use the Social Security website every single day to check on their benefits and submit their claims. But now, the technology division of Social Security Administration has been cut in half. And so the website's crashing. People can't sign on to their accounts. What do you think it does to that woman living alone at 74 years checking, just not able to even find out whether she can't even find out what that disability claim is she has? She can't file a new disability claim. And a lot of these people are being told incorrectly that their benefits have ended. Folks, imagine the panic that causes if you're a retiree living alone with only Social Security to depend upon. So now people are overwhelming the phone lines. They're showing up at the local Social Security office, tearful and frantic, and told, "Do you have an appointment?" In that tone, by the way. I can give you a personal example if I'm not going to, though. To cap it all off, serious people are now generally concerned for the first time in history, for the first and only time in history, that Social Security benefits may be delayed or interrupted. Folks, let's put this in perspective. In the 90 years since Franklin Roosevelt created the Social Security system, people have always gotten their Social Security checks. They've gotten them during wartime, during recessions, during a pandemic. No matter what, they got them. But now, for the first time ever, that might change. It would be calamity for millions of families, millions of people. But the current Secretary of Commerce doesn't seem to get it. Or based on his comments, he doesn't seem to even care. Many of you saw what he said the other day. And by the way, he's a billionaire. God love him, as my mother would say. Paying 8.5% in taxes. Anyway. Billionaires, I don't know what he's paying. But when he talked about the possibility of the Social Security checks not going out this month, he shrugged it off. Here's what he said. He said his 94-year-old mother-in-law wouldn't complain, wouldn't bother her. She's probably a lovely woman. No kidding. Her son-in-law is a billionaire. What about that 94-year-old mother living all by herself? Doesn't have a billionaire in the family. Or all the retirees who depend on that monthly check to feed themselves. All those people with disabilities have no other source. What about all those people? That's who you fight for. So those who desperately need you. And folks, it's not just the Secretary of Commerce. We heard how others, empowered and emboldened by this administration, talk about Social Security. One of them called it a Ponzi scheme. A Ponzi scheme? What the hell are they talking about? People earn these benefits. They paid into that benefit. They rely on that benefit. And no one should take it away. You know, Franklin Roosevelt had a different view. He was president coming out of the Great Depression. He and all his colleagues saw great suffering, so much poverty. He also took steps to raise standard of living for ordinary Americans, including creating Social Security. He himself was from a very wealthy family. He didn't need Social Security, but understood how much it would mean to millions of Americans. He knew it would make America stronger in the process, and it has. It makes our economy stronger. It makes the community stronger. It makes families stronger. It gives peace of mind. That's why the vast majority of Americans, including many wealthy Americans, still support, thank God, Social Security. And very wealthy billionaires still support Social Security. They may not rely on themselves, but they know. Social Security deserves to be protected for the good of the nation as a whole. You got to ask yourself, why is this happening? Why are these guys taking aim at Social Security now? Well, they're following that old line from tech startups. The quote is, move fast, break things. Well, they're certainly breaking things. They're shooting first and aiming later. And as a result, the result is a lot of needless pain and sleepless nights. My friend Governor O'Malley knows what they're really up to. He says, and I love his quote, they want to wreck it so they can rob it. They want to wreck it so they can rob it. And why do they want to rob it? In order to deliver huge tax cuts to billionaires and big corporations and keep it going. They want to make permanent the 2017 tax cuts, which overwhelmingly benefited the wealthiest Americans and the biggest corporations.
Yeah.
That's going to cost $5 trillion. Where are they going to get $5 trillion to pay for it? Other than continue to run the deficit up? Well, where they always do, by running up the national debt, number one, and then by taking the money from someplace else. What are the two big pots of money out there in raw numbers? Social Security and Medicaid. Well, from other programs that people rely on and have paid into. Republicans, or these guys, are willing to hurt the middle class and the working class in order to deliver significant greater wealth to the already very wealthy. Who in the hell do they think they are? I really think I mean, just basic decency. Who do they think they are? I think anybody should go out. They can make $1 billion a year. They can, fine. But pay your fair share. You know what the average? We have 1,000 billionaires in America. You know the average federal tax they pay? 8.2%. Anybody want to trade that number? What you're paying? Folks, look. Let me close. I'm sorry to go on so long, but it's just, anyway. I grew up in Scranton, Pennsylvania as a kid, and then Claymont, Delaware. Middle-class towns, working-class towns. Places where people worked hard all their lives with the promise that they'd be able to retire someday with a little bit of dignity. Because they've been paying in a thing called Social Security since the very paycheck they ever earned. These people get knocked down every day, learn to get up. My dad's one expression, you get knocked down, just get up. Get up. They get up every day. The last thing they need from their government is deliberate cruelty. It's about people and neighbors across the country who look out for each other. You don't see empathy. They don't see it as a sign of weakness. They see empathy as a decent instinct. They don't see cruelty as a sign of strength. Social Security is about more than retirement accounts. It's about honoring a fundamental trust between government and people. It's about peace of mind for those who work their whole lives so they can rest assured they'll have a chance. They'll get back some of what they earned and what they deserve. But more than anything else, I mean this sincerely. And as my friend says, maybe it's the Irish of it in me, but it's about who we are as Americans. Who are we? What makes us distinct from the rest of the world? It comes down to basic, in my view, fundamental American values. Nobody's king. Nobody's the boss. Everybody has a shot. All people are asking for is a shot. Honesty, decency, where hard work is rewarded. Have some faith in each other. Fairness, simple fairness. We can't go on like this as a divided nation, as divided as we are. Like I said, I've been doing this a long time. It's never been this divided. Granted, it's roughly 30%, but it's a 30% that has no heart. What we see in America, that's what we believe in, fairness. And that's the America we can never forget or walk away from. Folks, I mean this. I know it sounds trite, but I have to remember who we are. We're the United States of America. The United States of America. The most unique country in the history of the world, and that's not hyperbole. Every other nation was founded because of religion, geography, ethnicity. We're the only nation in the world founded on an ocean. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men and women are created equal, endowed by their Creator. That's the one thing united. It's an idea. Every other nation was because of a purpose. It's an idea. And how can we fulfill the outcome, the meaning of that idea? We walk away from just basic fundamental decency. Folks, sorry to go on so long, but I feel deeply about this. You know, you've heard me say it before, and I'll say it again. There's nothing beyond the capacity of America to do when we do it together. Let's do it together. God bless you all, and may God protect our troops. Thank you for what you do.
Shout out to Joe Biden, man. I gotta tell you, I commend him for coming out and actually saying something, because it's not easy. You know, the way he went down, absolutely bad. You know, it is bad the way he went down after the debate, after the last debate he had with Trump in June last summer. I pretty much thought it was over for him. I didn't know he was going to have the strength to actually come out here and speak to the people, but he came out, he spoke. It is what it is. But overall, Joe Biden. There was so many lies about Joe Biden, how he was healthy, how he was ready to go. But he wasn't. He was too slow, sluggish, falling off stairs. I mean, he's older, I get it, but I mean, Trump is 79 now, and that man moves like a machine. Does 2 to 4 events every single day. Incredible.
President Trump's trade war with China and on-again, off-again tariffs continue to rattle markets and spread economic uncertainty. My next guest views it as an opportunity for his party to seize the moment. It's James Carville, legendary Democratic strategist who coined the phrase, "It's the economy, stupid." James has a new op-ed out in which he thinks his party should be, what he thinks his party should be doing to counter the president. He writes, quote, "In what will certainly be recorded as one of the most ignorant acts of political leadership in American history, the President of the United States has now willfully damaged the global economy with his tariff chaos. The path to stabilizing and strengthening the country starts when Democrats can take back the economic narrative from the Republican Party and persuade the majority of Americans to close the book on the Trump chaos." And James Carville joins me now. You say this is an opportunity for the Democrats. How do they seize it?
Right. Well, so right now the image of the party is in the 20s. We had a bad election. People think that we're irrelevant, that we're not part of the equation here. So we have a chance for a second introduction. We should take that and be on the side of people that are trying to make it. And I pretty much laid out what I thought in the piece, that this is a real opportunity for Democrats to get a better definition and to tell people who they really are, and not a bunch of cultural loonies wandering around in left field somewhere, but people that are really connected to the lives of families throughout the United States. So I think this is a marvelous opportunity for Democrats.
What's the right way, do you think, for Democrats to talk about the tariffs, and what's the wrong way for Democrats to talk about the tariffs?
Well, I mean, the right way to talk about them is their attacks on people that are trying to make it, people that are struggling, that want opportunity in this country, that are trying to get educated, they're trying to prove their lot in life. These tariffs are just going to clobber them and set them back. And that's not the way to go about this at all. They're completely ill thought out. And if you look at the savings accounts or the 401ks or anything that Americans have, they're taking a hit as a result of this. And the markets don't like it. The economy is weak. Let's see what the growth numbers here are coming up for the first quarter and see what the second quarter is. I suspect they're probably not going to be that great. But let's see. And most people feel like they've fallen behind since January 20th, and for good reason.
Should Democrats talk about the markets?
Well, I don't know if you have to talk about them. I think people see them. I think most people see them every day. But you could certainly say there's a complete lack of confidence in what we've been presented with from Wall Street to Main Street. I mean, there's 1,000 ways that you can articulate that connect with people. We shouldn't be just a party of markets, although the markets do significantly better under Democrats and Republicans. That's an absolute fact. But I think that we ought to focus more on how this is whipsawing the talk of these tariffs and whipsawing American families and making it more difficult for them. And, a declining market doesn't make it very easy for a policewoman or a school teacher or, a guy that runs a dry cleaner or anything. It's tough out there, and we should acknowledge that and tell people we're on their side.
So you saw today that the president was in the Oval Office with the president of El Salvador, more or less refusing to try to get this El Salvadoran migrant back to the United States, who the administration admitted was sent there in error. This may or may not be a fight with the Supreme Court, but my question is, to what extent do you think now that the tariffs have really pulled down his approval rating, the president would rather be focused on deportations and immigration and get the press for that than have it focused on the tariffs?
So let me get this straight. This guy was here legally. There are a lot of people here that are legal that really contribute to our workforce, contribute to our productivity. He was doing nothing wrong. He was in a parking lot. He had a child that had challenges in the back seat. He was sent to El Salvador. The district court said he has to come back. The appeals court said he had to come back. The Supreme Court said he had to come back. There's not a single judge that has looked at this said he'd come back. And so the administration said, we're just not going to bring him back. Well, that is the very essence of a constitutional crisis. When you have an order from a court that's not that it needs to be ratified. John, you're a little young, but in 2000, at the turn of this century, the Supreme Court, without good reason, just went off and stole an election. And what we did, we said, well, the Supreme Court has spoken. And this is not something that's a minor thing where you just ignore a court order, and this tin horn coming in here in the White House and them refusing to pay attention.
These guys, they've lost so much that the only thing they can do now is just talk about Trump's greatness. And you could argue back and forth and say, well, this and that. But they've lost so much that the only thing left is just to talk about, well, we don't like what he's doing. He's hurting businesses. He's doing that. He's doing this. Millions of people, tens of millions of people are saying they support Trump. They support his tariffs. And they're ready to weather the storm because they want manufacturing back in the United States. But of course, everybody is not going to support Trump. Everybody ain't going to support Trump. It's just the way it goes. Anyway, a lot has been going on. Check this out. The aftermath of arson attack on Governor Josh Shapiro's home. We live in a crazy world, ladies and gentlemen. It's okay if you don't like someone. Don't go burning
This
their
morning,
house
a man
down.
is charged in connection with an arson at the Pennsylvania governor's residence while Governor Shapiro and his family slept inside. Pennsylvania State Police said that Shapiro and his family were evacuated around 2 o'clock Sunday after the home was set on fire. No one was injured, but as you can see, the fire caused significant damage to the home.
We do know that this attack was targeted. We don't know the person's specific motive yet, but we do know a few truths. First, this type of violence is not okay.
It's not.
Joining me now, CNN's Gene Casares.
Jesus.
Wow, this is, Josh Shapiro. They were sleeping in the home. They had just celebrated Passover, and someone set their home on fire. What can you tell us?
Well, we've got the criminal complaint now, and in fact, we have got a lot of information. First of all, the charges. The top charge is attempted homicide. Wow. That this person tried to kill the people inside with these homemade incendiary devices. Next, aggravated arson. We also have burglary of a home. And then we have, as the fifth count, terrorism. Cody Balmer is the name of the suspect who has been arrested. He actually had a friend of his, a female, call police to tell them he wanted to turn himself in. He turned himself in. He was given his Miranda rights, but he started to talk. Here's what we know. He said that he walked about a mile to get to the house, and that's when he he jumped the fence, threw the first incendiary device into a room. Police tell us that was the piano room. And then it took off. And then he went to the second window he saw and threw a second incendiary device in. That would be the dining room. It took off. He said it was Heineken beer bottles that he had put gasoline in. He jumped through the second window. He was actually in the mansion at that point, and then finished his business and left. He was asked by police, did you believe that somebody was going to be asleep in the house at that time? He said, yeah, I knew that was a possibility. That's important. State of mind, that goes to intent to want to kill who was ever in that home. He said he hated the governor. Now, motive is not in this description right here. He may have told them more, but they don't need motive. They need the elements. But here is what the governor had to say the family was doing the night before.
Hear me on this. We celebrated our faith last night proudly, and in a few hours, we will celebrate our second Seder of Passover again proudly. No one will deter me or my family or any Pennsylvanian from celebrating their faith openly and proudly.
So then the police also asked the defendant, what would you have done if the governor had confronted you in the mansion? He said, I would have taken my hammer and I would have started to hit him. And they found, Sarah, a sledgehammer at his home.
That is terrifying. Gene, I know you got this information just a few moments ago, and you really sort of broke down why terrorism is one of the charges there. I'm sure we will be learning more. Thank you so much for that. It was great.
CNN's Danny Freeman has more now.
Thank you for tuning into the live show. You know what time it is. It is currently 7:21 p.m. And of course, today's date is the 15th of April, 2025. Politics has been dividing families, communities, society, cities, states, countries. And that's just absolutely insane. We should do better. I don't care if you're Democrat, Republican, goddamn liberal. I don't care what you are. Independent, whatever you are. You are a human being, okay? You have flaws. You're never going to be perfect. Same thing with your elected leaders, your president, your governors, your senators, congressmen, congresswomen. All of these people are not going to be perfect. So if they do something you don't agree with, your next cause of action should be burning down their house, burning down Tesla dealerships. Like, what are you doing? I was about to say, what are we doing? But I'm not doing this BS. So what are y'all doing, man? What are y'all doing? Burning down governor's house, Tesla dealership, assassination attempt on Trump. Like, what is going on, y'all? It's okay. We get it. You don't like Trump. Why try to assassinate him? It's okay. You don't like Governor Josh Shapiro. Why try to burn down his house? You don't like him? Okay. Keep it going. Go home. Watch Netflix. Eat some large cheese pizza. And buy some spicy chicken and just eat your food. Stop trying to burn down somebody else's home. Struggle, sweat. He's been working years. He has kids. Now you don't burn down the memories of their childhood, of the love they shared in the home. Crazy.
From Philadelphia.
It was an extremely troubling and frightening night in Pennsylvania's capital after Governor Josh Shapiro's mansion, the governor's mansion residence, was set on fire intentionally, according to Pennsylvania State Police. The main headline that we learned Sunday afternoon is that there was a suspect taken into custody, 38-year-old Cody Balmer. He'll be charged with attempted murder, terrorism, aggravated arson, and aggravated assault. That's according to the Dauphin County District Attorney. But here's a little bit of a timeline of the best that we understand as to how this all unfolded. On Saturday evening, Governor Josh Shapiro was holding a Passover Seder for the first night of the Jewish holiday of Passover. He was with his family. He had guests over at the governor's residence as well. They all then went to sleep. And then at some point in the middle of the night, just before 2 a.m., Pennsylvania State Police say this man, Balmer, jumped a fence at the governor's residence, evaded state troopers who at that time actually realized that there had been a breach. The man was then able to break into the residence, set fire to the residence.
And that's another thing. This is the governor, okay? This is the governor. And yet, his home was able to get burned to this level. That's crazy. With all the protection he has protections. He has security. He has government-paid security. And yet, this happened. Are we going to say this is incompetence or what is this?
Escaped then by jumping back over the fence. He had homemade incendiary devices on him, according to Pennsylvania State Police. Then at 2 a.m., Governor Shapiro said that he and his family and some of his guests who were staying over were woken up by bangs on the door because first responders were alerting him that part of the residence was on fire. Thankfully, though, the fire was in a different part of the building from where the governor, his wife, family, and guests were. And first responders were able to knock that fire down. Amazingly, no one was injured. But again, now there is a multi-agency investigation ongoing into exactly what happened here. The investigation being led by the Pennsylvania State Police, but also being assisted by the FBI. And I just want you to listen to how Governor Shapiro characterized what he was feeling after this entire incident, clearly overwhelmed by the level of support that he's received from so many across the country after this incident. But also he said that he will not be deterred by violence from doing his job or by practicing his faith.
This kind of violence is becoming far too common in our society. And I don't give a damn if it's coming from one particular side or the other. directed at one particular party or another, or one particular person or another. It is not okay.
Now, Pennsylvania State Police investigators say that this investigation is ongoing, and they're also reviewing security protocols at the governor's residence. At this time, CNN has not been able to get in contact with an attorney for Balmer. Danny Freeman, CNN, Philadelphia.
What questions do you still have? What is standing out to you?
Well, the biggest thing is everyone's going to ask, how could he get over the fence and into the house without the troopers finding him? As you look at the property now, it's actually fairly decent from the fence line to the house. It's 2 a.m, and anytime the first time something happens, it's really tough to anticipate that. No one's ever broken over the fence and lit the residence on fire, so that's not what they're expecting. They probably had some type of protrusion alarm that someone got over, and they were looking for someone who was on the grounds, maybe looking to do some graffiti or something along those lines, because they haven't had something this serious. So I think when they look at the after action, and they're going to be very critical, they're going to need technology, sensors, lighting, motion detection lighting to help them do it, have a dog on presence, up the number of people that are on the residence in the middle of the night, because now it's coming to the point where this is going to be prevalent. Violence is starting to happen. As Andy McCabe said last time, there's no federal domestic terrorism charges. There are state ones. So that's going to come into play on the prosecution side. But I think really what's going to happen is you're going to see a much bigger detail, and you're going to see more permanent personnel around his residence and his family.
It is so striking to know that this person was able to make it inside the governor's residence. And the way they were describing this, that this person, they said, was quite methodical in how they did this. They had these homemade incendiary devices, as you and Danny noted, and then they were back over the fence, and that they were apprehended, I believe, just a little time ago. It is remarkable that all of that was able to happen. And we look at the images. This was a very, very serious situation.
Oh, absolutely. If he had a better layout of the house and understanding maybe where they're at, and he was more determined to actually do harm to them, I think you could have a very different situation. I think probably when he went in and lit the fire, the people that were on call at that time were going directly to the family to get him out. And it probably lessened the number of people that were able to look for him, because you want to deal with his safety first. So again, I think you're going to see a lot bigger presence when they get this house repaired and he goes back in there, that they're going to have more permanent personnel around there. They're going to have probably dedicated people, and then you're going to have to harden the entries and like that. So when I do security assessments, that's what I look at. If someone gets over the first barrier, how long does it take them to get to the next barrier? How quickly can they get through that? Because that all determines what you have to put in place to understand that if someone's motivated and they want to get in there, how fast they can do it.
And we again don't know the motive yet. We do know, as the governor said, he says this was a targeted attack. That's what law enforcement and the DA also said. What do you read into that at this point?
I think they've talked about religion only because, one, he just made a post about Passover, and I think that's the one that sticks out the most. But you're really going to have to start now doing the investigation electronically. Has he posted something on social media? Does he belong to any groups that are anti-Semitism type groups? Is he affiliated with anyone? Did he text anyone about this? Also look at when he bought these items to make these incendiary devices, because you look at when the governor posted that photo to how quick, and depending on the devices he had, how quick he could make them. He may have already had this in plan, and it just happened to be that he posted the pictures and people are linking it to it. But also look at some of the laws he just passed and some things that happened. But that's where the investigations are going to come in to put motive. And they did allude to the probable cause warrant that's going to be coming out. And it may have something that he said that really gives the authorities the idea of why he did it.
Yeah. And they said we should have that in the next, they said several hours. We will see if that transpired, but certainly more details to come. Rob, thanks so much. We appreciate it.
All right. Thank you for tuning into the live show. You know what time it is. It is your boy Genesis. Okay, Zelensky, 60 minutes. Nobody cares, bro.
Hey, Stephen, how are you? Hey, I'm good, thank you. Good morning, everybody. Who wants
Hi, my
to
boy.
go first?
I'll ask, do you plan on ramping up the or does the administration plan on ramping up deportations to El Salvador? And how many people do you want El Salvador to take from the United States?
Well, as an example, there are thousands of either trained Nicaragua members left in this country or their affiliates and associates. So obviously some...
No, we're going to come back for that for the second section today. Second session for today. But for now, I want us to focus on the tariff and trade war between China and the United States and what's going on. Let's see the report.
Orders Chinese airlines to stop taking deliveries of Boeing planes and to not buy the aircraft-related equipment from American companies.
This comes as President Trump considers a pause on car tariffs.
Jackie Heinrich is live at the White House with all the details for you. Hey, Jackie.
Hey, good morning to you guys. That's right. Bloomberg is reporting this morning that China has ordered its airlines to halt deliveries of Boeing jets and all aircraft-related parts, causing shares of the company to drop 4.6% in pre-market trading. That followed the announcement. This order will block about 10 747 MAX airline jets from entering Chinese fleets. China's retaliatory tariff of 125% on American goods made purchases impractical, more than doubling the cost, according to this report. Meantime, Beijing is looking for ways to assist the Chinese airlines that lease the Boeing jets. This news comes as President Trump is announcing he's considering a pause for auto tariffs. Last week, he said no such exceptions were under consideration, but he also cautioned that he will stay flexible.
I'm looking at something to help some of the car companies where they're switching to parts that were made in Canada, Mexico, and other places, and they need a little bit of time because they're going to make them here, but they need a little bit of time. So I'm talking about things like that.
NEC Director Kevin Hassett said on Kudlow yesterday the U.S. has solid trade deal offers from about 10 countries, but the real number is north of 10. The offers just aren't quite there yet. Meantime, the White House is preparing a rescission package to codify DOGE cuts. Among the items on the chopping block, half the State Department and USAID budgets, slashing $26 billion in programs that promote democracy, support cultural institutions, and aid multinational institutions. That's according to Politico. Plus, the New York Post is reporting billions in federal funding for NPR and PBS is also on the chopping block. OMB Director Russ Vought saying, quote, since day one, the Trump administration has targeted waste, fraud, and abuse in federal spending through executive action, DOGE review, and other efforts by departments and agencies. Congress has expressed strong interest in supporting these efforts and requested the administration transmit rescissions to the Hill for swift approval. Now, formally transmitting these cuts from the White House will start that 45-day clock for the House and Senate to approve or reject the blueprint. According to the New York Post, the White House thinks that this package of rescissions will pass, guys.
But you know what I'm so shocked at, Jackie? That it's just $9.5 billion. Like I thought we saved a minimum $250 billion. Why start so low?
Yeah, we've got to go back actually and look at the numbers because there are conflicting stats in the Politico reporting and the NPR reporting. It looks like the NPR or the New York Post reporting includes cuts to NPR and PBS as well as 8-point-something billion for the State Department, while the Politico reporting puts the State Department and USAID cuts at 26, which would include the 8 that's referenced in the New York Post. So we're trying to get a solid number. Our reporting is that the White House has passed a rescission package, but we're trying to nail down exactly what that number is, guys.
All right. Thanks so much.
Thanks.
So it's a pretty big deal. I mean, they cut off the rare earth. We should be getting them from them anyway. Why we're depending on them for everything. And the other thing is with Boeing planes, you only got one other shot, Airbus. So it's either you want Boeing or you want Airbus, but Airbus just can't replace something that takes time to produce, Lawrence.
Yeah, it's gonna be some pain here, Brian. I mean, there's just no sugarcoating it. I hate that it had to be this moment that we started doing manufacturing in our country, because it
Right.
seems like in many respects, we're just not prepared for it. Maybe the president can get some type of operation like Operation Warp Speed, where we start to produce at a massive scale. But I also think that it's just very interesting, as I made the point yesterday, that China is willing to stop planes when they didn't want to stop the planes when there was a pandemic going on. They could have notified the world. If China wants to get into action, they're showing that they can do it. I just hope we're ready for this fight. I think there's a lot of people, and I'm going to be talking with diners later on today, that support the president because they feel like this is the patriotic thing to do, to make here, build here, and that they feel like it's a safety issue for our country. Ainsley.
Lawrence, two things. Yesterday, Walmart said that they looked at their first earnings report for 2025. No negative effect from these tariffs. 70% of their goods are made in America, and that's what Trump's trying to do for industries. He's listening to the car industry. They're saying, can you rethink this? Can you pause this for just a little bit? And he's listening to the people. But a lot of people out in America, they love this. Everywhere we go, people are saying they love it. Trump did.
There is no doubt, absolutely zero doubt, that if you are a small business, if you have moderate or big business or whatever you operate on, this tariff is definitely going to, affect you. But it's necessary. It's going to affect small businesses in the United States, but it is necessary. So the president has to do what he has to do and figure out a way to make sure that the people, don't go into some sort of wild, crazy, recession in their mind saying, well, I can't pay for tariffs for products coming from other countries. I cannot produce or mass produce here because it's crazy expensive. So he's going to have to figure out a way to mitigate that whole risk, because now people are saying, you know what, we can't keep the business going. It's just real life. That's what is going on now. Real life in real time. Okay. People are paying way higher for their product that is being made from other countries, most especially China. But the whole theme here is to bring back manufacturing into the United States. That's all this is all about. But it is affecting people, especially small businesses in the United States. We just have to stay the course because this is necessary. This is necessary. Like manufacturing in the United States is like, really, it's a national security issue because you have to produce your medications, your food. Like these things have to be mass produced in the United States.
Sit down with Rachel Campos Duffy. She asked him something that he said no one has ever asked him. Could the tariff money, could it replace our income taxes so that we wouldn't have to pay taxes? Listen.
Yes.
Las aranceles van a reemplazar el income tax?
You're the only one that's asked me that. Oh, I deal with all these big financial geniuses. Nobody ever. There is a chance that the money from tariffs could be so great that it would replace. In the old days, about 1870 to 1913, the tariffs were the only form of money. And that's when our nation was relatively the richest. We were the richest.
Facts.
That's interesting. You'll be able to see Rachel's full interview with the president. It drops today, 4 o'clock on Fox Noticias, and she's got the interview. And in talking, Lawrence, you made a good point. There's going to be some pain because of a variety of reasons. But we know big multinational companies like Boeing and the car companies, they've got plans to weather it. The New York Post today, their cover story is Mr. Trump saved my business. And what it talks about is how many mom and pop shops across the United States are in really big trouble. Small businesses account for 1/3 of all American imports. All the stuff that comes into the country goes to small businesses. And right now, a lot of the small businesses are having to either lay off people or hike their prices or close. And they're just not equipped. So the Post highlights a bunch of small businesses that are on the verge of going under, and
After a week?
Well, after a while. The New York Post, the editorial says, Mr. President, be careful because you are well insulated from the financial shocks. They have no clue about how the surcharges are clobbering small business owners and their patrons. So while a big company has got deep pockets, it's the people who are living paycheck to paycheck as a small business operator that are really feeling the pain. A lot of them voted for Trump. A lot of them want the tariffs to work. But right now, it just hurts.
But it's projected pain because, I mean, we're talking about something that happened 4 days ago. 1 week ago, or, depending on, and the president's phased other things in. The other thing is, the president's doing exactly what he said he was going to do. He said he's got to reconfigure all these relationships. He said 10 came in with strong deals yesterday. Also, that big story about NVIDIA, Lawrence, the chip maker announced it would produce supercomputers for artificial intelligence entirely in the U.S. That might be the #1 company in the world.
Yeah, let's actually talk with some of the people about that, Brian, because I think this tariff thing, we're so outside of the bubble sometimes that we miss what the American people are talking about. Let's go talk with some folks here. Hey, how y'all doing? Let's go over here. Hey, how y'all doing? Let's talk about the tariffs, if y'all don't mind. What's your name, ma'am?
Kathy.
Kathy, and what's your name?
Jim.
Jim. Okay, so I've been talking with folks about this tariff issue. Some people feel like we need to take the power back from these other countries. We need some fairness. And some people feel like we're going to have some pain. Where do you stand? Or do you support the president's plan here, or are you concerned?
I support the president. I think it'll all even out. And we voted for him. We have to support him.
What about you, sir? Where do you stand?
I think one of the things that we always ask is why we're going to leave our children. And I think that this is something that should have been done decades ago. So this is something that we're going to leave our children. We're going to leave our children a better economy than we have right now.
Thank you, sir. Let's go over here and talk to these folks. How you doing, sir?
Good. How are you?
Good. How you doing? Well, you're live on air. I promise I'm going to take a picture with you afterwards. What's your name?
Angela.
Angela, tell me, what do you feel about the president in this tariff business? Do you feel like it's the right thing to do to get some fairness with the other countries, shut down China? Or are you concerned right now?
No, I'm not concerned. I have full faith in our president. We support him 100%.
Is this what he campaigned on, that he was going to go after these, make America great again through America First policy?
Yes, he did.
Where do you stand, sir?
Absolutely stand behind the president. Number one, he actually is masterful plan, played China like a fiddle. And, you got to say that may be rough the next few weeks, but we'll get through it. And it's totally the art of the deal.
Well, we always do get through it, don't we? So, guys, this is what I was talking about. It's not just the people that support Trump. It's all these unions that are typically Democratic voters that are supportive of this tariff policy. So while Wall Street may be freaking out, and these people, they've acknowledged the pain as well, but they support the president's action right here because they feel like it's time to stick it to China, A, and number two, it's America first, not America last, guys.
Well, there you go. All right, thanks so much.
They said the same thing that the diner.
Thank you for tuning into the live show. You know what time it is. It is your boy Genesis. With that being said, it is currently 7:45 p.m. in the Southeast. I am in Georgia. All right, you know what time it is. It is currently, today's date is the 15th of April, 2025. And we've seen what's going on with the tariff, the trade war, and the going back and forth between the United States and China. And of course, China, like I always say, China has always been the target. Donald Trump just acted like he wanted to tariff other countries, which of course he wanted to. He wanted fair trade deals with the European Union, every part of the world. But China has always been the OG, the legendary, the 45th and the 47th target. That has always been his target. He's been talking about China for years, for like 35, 40 years, and has been saying the same freaking thing about China, which is y'all are doing way too much by taking advantage of the United States. So people support it, like you heard. People support the tariff. However, they are acknowledging that There may be some rough times. There will be some rough times in the coming weeks. But overall, there is light at the end of the tunnel. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning in. Double tap your screen, subscribe to the channel, and we have been streaming for 2 hours and 55 minutes. Yeah, boy, gotta go be a daddy. And God bless y'all. Instead of looking for perfection, seek for consistency. Never give up on yourself. Never give up on your dreams. Never give up on God. Believe in yourself. Believe in your dreams. And believe in Almighty God, okay? Regardless of what's going on, love one another, okay? Love your neighbors, all right? Don't matter if they're liberals or Democrats or Republicans or whatever they are. Spread love. And God bless you. God bless the United States. And thank you to the veterans and the military personnel. You guys protect the homeland. God bless you. And I am signing out. Thank you to Mr. Booski, C. Shelley, Zyro, everybody in the comment section. God bless you. Thank you for tuning in. And we're going to be back, okay? Turn on notification bell. And your boy